580 Sports Talk on the air on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. McCole Hardman back. Spoke with the media today. We will get to some McCole Hardman discussion. We'll talk about the Chiefs going streaking. Brendan, not happy about that.
No.
Not happy about that, although the cost was not that much. We will get to that. We'll get the latest.
It ain't my money. I don't care about that. I care that I have to watch him again.
What's wrong with watching him?
He stinks.
He does not stink. He had 5 touchdowns last year in 5 games.
You're right. Most fifth-year wide receivers don't know how to run more than 2 routes.
I don't care. Right. He does what he does, and he's good at what he does.
We'll get to the bigger concern. The bigger concern we'll get to here in just a moment.
That's a tease, folks.
Yeah. After not being on the show at all yesterday, I've got, aside from one question I asked Jerome Tang, apparently, I've got a whole day's worth of snarky comments and segues to make.
You know how you blow up a balloon and then you pinch it and then you like let the air out? That's Brendan today.
Yeah.
A full balloon, ready to have the air let out.
Pretty much. We're gonna
full of hot air, like always.
We're gonna talk with Paul Myerberg coming up at the bottom of the hour. Pistol stops by. We'll chat with Rick Peterson. Lots to break down today when it comes to the Big 12. We'll also get to a comment or a topic we were going to talk about yesterday. The Chiefs and the Chargers, they renew the rivalry, and it's going to be a close one on Saturday or on Sunday. We will get to that coming up. Mitch Holthus joins us, talk all things Chiefs. So we got a lot to get to. Leading into we got extra bonus football. Louis Toyota Thursday night game of the week will be Washburn Earl taking on Topeka West this evening. We'll have that game coming up after overtime here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. Hit us up on our text line. Let us know your thoughts there. Go to YouTube as well. 785-272-9429 is our text line. Hit us up on YouTube. As always, go to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Well, McCole Hardman is back. Spoke to the media today. McCole basically said, yeah, there's a few new things, new wrinkles, new verbiage when it comes to the playbook that he's going to have to learn, but otherwise he knows it pretty well. Andy Reid will make the determining factor if he is going to play or not. That will be to be determined when it comes to McCole Hardman and also Charles Omenihu. I would like to think Omenihu's going to play. I feel like you should be in some shape to play at least a couple snaps, considering you basically have just been chilling for 6 weeks. Hardman maybe a little bit different, but both of those will be Andy Reid decisions. We'll hear from Big Red coming up tomorrow on the press conference to let us know kind of his plan. But I would like to think Omenihu will. Maybe Hardman, maybe he won't. I would think he would be because you don't have Justin Watson, so that gives you that 7th guy. And they're going to need a punt returner because Montrell Washington has been waived to make room for McCole Hardman. And to make room for Charles Omenihu, they have waived Keandre Coburn. That is the 6th-round draft pick for the Kansas City Chiefs this year. Washington, not a surprise, as he was a late addition. He's basically just a special teams guy, punt returner, if you will. So Hardman can take that role if he chooses to do so. You know who we might see if Hardman is not active? Might get a good old Sky Moore sighting at punt return because Justin Watson is not there.
We're really playing all the hits.
No. So that could very well happen.
I will not allow this to happen.
If Hardman is not available or is not active, I think he will be active. Because he knows enough of the playbook. Jesse Newell tweeted out today that he doesn't think he's seen someone that happy to be at practice.
Oh, you watched the video?
He was bouncing and happy. He was in his happy place.
It's like he got released from jail, man. And he was obviously happy to see some of his friends on the team, some of his former teammates. It kind of made me feel good for him. I saw our friend of the program, Seth Kaiser, kind of express a similar sentiment on Twitter. Like, was happy for McCole Hardman to be happy because I'm sure the 6 weeks he spent with the Jets not getting to play and having to play with Zach Wilson probably felt like hell.
Now he's back with the back with the gang, man. You know, so he's hanging out with the gang. So
in fairness, he didn't really play with Zach Wilson.
This is true.
He caught one pass. But I'm not surprised at Montreal Washington.
No.
A little surprised at Keandre Coburn because he was a 6th-round draft pick. Now, maybe it's, hey, we don't think he's good enough right now and we're in the win now situation, but he still had 3 more years under cost control. Why didn't they, release Dickerson? Was a surprise in that situation. Why not try to keep the guy who's got a little bit longer of a contract? But maybe they thought, we think we can get Coburn back on the practice squad. Well, they only have 1 practice squad spot open. So if it's Washington or Coburn, they're going to have to make another move to bring them both back, which they will. They will release somebody from the practice squad. And if they can, as long as Washington and Coburn clear waivers, the Chiefs can re-sign them on the practice squad.
Yeah.
That is what they are hoping to do. But it is kind of a surprise that they would let go of a 6th-round pick. But 6th-round pick, a lot of lottery tickets, even though the Chiefs have been pretty good, hasn't, the reason why he's let go is because Derek Notty's turned into the fountain of youth, apparently, and found it because he's been pretty darn good this year. And that's the reason why I think maybe Coburn is the one who got let go.
Well, he hasn't been active. Has he played?
He's played in 1 game.
How many snaps has Keandre Coburn played this season?
6.
3.
Add them together. He has played 9.
Hey, look at that. There we go.
Teamwork.
Yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work.
And there's the difference because I agree it's kind of shocking, but he's not only has only played in 1 game, I think he's only been activated 1 game. That 1 game, whereas Matt Dickerson has played in 4 games and has 83 snaps, all defensively, not even on special teams.
There's a big difference. Like, I understand, like, on the face of it, you can look and say, boy, that's not great to, waive a guy who you just drafted this year, particularly at a spot in the draft where the Chiefs have found some contributors in recent years. But you have to look at the context, and the context is that this isn't a team where there's a bunch of playing time available. Like, if they had gone into this season and it was a wide open competition, who's going to play defensive tackle on this team? If Chris Jones and Derek Notty and Turk Wharton didn't exist, and Keandre Coburn as a draft pick could not earn playing time over like street free agents, veteran guys, that would be not great. But this is just a squeeze. And this happens to teams with rosters like the Chiefs, with depth like the Chiefs, with the aspirations that the Chiefs have.
Yeah.
And let's be frank, too.
We'll talk about him coming up.
Yeah, we'll get to actual capital F Frank. Lowercase f Frank, though. Right now, who's helping you more to win a championship? The guy who has played 1 snap all season, or theoretically the wide receiver, McCole Hardman? You need wide receiver help, and the defensive lineman, who everybody agrees is going to be a boon for this pass rush. I get that it sucks to a degree, but also like the Chiefs are not really in a position where, if you're the favorites to win the Super Bowl, then go win the Super Bowl.
Yep. I look at when I saw this question was asked, how much better are the Chiefs now with Hardman and with Amenahu? And the Chiefs defense does, I think, go up a rung because you had another above average pass rusher, especially going into this year. He was pass rusher number 2 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. Think about other teams. If they add all of a sudden their second best pass rusher to their team. Now, I'm not saying, it's like, getting a Khalil Mack or a Bosa back, but I do think it is a benefit for the Chiefs. So I do think their defensive ceiling is up another foot or up 2 feet or the vaulted ceiling, if you will. I do think that does make a big factor. This is not just getting, a Carlos Dunlap. This is getting somebody who can make an impact, especially next to Chris Jones. So I do think that does raise the ceiling. Brendan's going to disagree with me on this, but I think McCole Hardman raises the ceiling for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the reason why is, for some reason, and
by the way, Carlos Dunlap was pretty good last year.
Yeah, he was, but I expect more from Amenahu than I do Carlos Dunlap.
Okay.
McCole Hardman does something that this Chiefs team could not figure out how to do, because Sky Moore couldn't figure it out. Kadarius Toney has been injured, also couldn't figure it out. They really haven't given Rashee Rice an opportunity at it. But the Kansas City Chiefs do love the touch zoom motion pass that results in a 10-yard run, or sometimes, in McCole Hardman's case, a couple touchdowns. They don't have that right now. That is part of the playbook. Whether you, Brendan, dislike the I feel like
you're a Hardman guy. No, it's fine. I know you got the fat head at home.
Coming. I knew that was
coming. You got the fat head. You got the jersey.
I do. Team,
got the custom black jersey.
I'm gonna get the 12 Hardman jersey. Brendan.
Yeah, you gotta get a new one.
I'm gonna get a new one. Yes, I'm not making out to be the McCole Hardman truther. He's not like adding Tyreek Hill or even somebody not as good as Tyreek Hill. But he does bring a specific skill set. He's not a worthless player.
See, now you're talking like you're giving that Liam Neeson quote, and I don't like Liam Neeson. You're not helping here.
The East-West stuff.
He does. He
hasn't worked for the Chiefs, and McCole Hardman has made it work.
And they use it. They like to use that near the red zone at the 10-yard line, the 15-yard line. They try to outflank you and then get him in motion and then fake it and hand it off to Pacheco. Like, he does raise the ceiling of this team.
I was reading something really interesting today. It might have been Charles Robinson. It was over at Yahoo Sports. Might have been what's his name at Yahoo Sports? Frank
Schwab.
It was either him or it was Charles Robinson, but it was at Yahoo Sports. And they were talking about something that we've talked about all week. Why is offense down? Why aren't teams scoring points? Why are teams struggling in the red zone? Because we look at it as a Chiefs problem, but it's a league-wide problem. The teams are struggling, having to settle for field goals more often in the red zone this year than in past years. One of the reasons that was cited is teams are playing a lot more zone and less man, and they're blitzing a lot more. They're running more cover zero in red zone situations. Cover zero is where you have zero safety help because the safeties are blitzing and you're man on the outside and you're bringing everything up the middle. That makes it hard to go north-south, but should open things up east-west, right? So the Chiefs bringing that element back into their offense, because for whatever reason, like conceptually, you would think Kadarius Toney, east-west, he's made it work before. It hasn't worked this year. Sky Moore is just not that player. For whatever skills he does have, that's not one of them. And not everybody can make it work, right? Not everybody can do everything. But McCole Hardman, the last time we saw him healthy in a Chiefs uniform was making that stuff work and making it work against elite defenses too. Because who do you have his best game against before he got hurt? The San Francisco 49ers. He lit them up. He had 2 touchdowns in that game. 3 touchdowns, in fact, in that game. So for me, that's the logic behind bringing him back. Like, is he going to line up on the outside and get the separation from a defensive back that the Chiefs have been missing in their passing game? No, he's not that kind of player. Is he going to catch, back shoulder throws, slot fades, that kind of thing? No, he's not going to do that.
I don't even know if he's ever done that.
I don't know that he has either. But that's not what you bring him in to do. No. You bring him in to shore up an element that could potentially help you unlock the red zone and get in the end zone and finish some of those drives in a way that the Chiefs haven't been able to do so far this season.
I kind of want the Chiefs to.
That is my defense of McCole Hardman. Yeah, like the trade for McCole Hardman.
It's an understandable trade, and you hope that it helps out a little bit because he's not a game changer. I know Big Red can be a troll at times.
No.
I want Andy Reid to the first play of the game against the Chargers, right out of the gate. Run a deep ball with McCole Hardman. Just chuck it deep, like 80 yards. 7-step drop, 1 pat, and then let it fly. Wouldn't it be amazing if he catches it or gets a pass interference? That would make me. It's not going to happen, but I think that would be hilarious because that's not what he is good at.
Here's the more practical problem with the Hardman deal. Because, I'm being hard on him mostly for effect. Like, I don't think he's an especially good player, but yeah, there's a way you can use him, and there's a pretty, there's an element of the playbook that is going to use his skill set to its maximum ability because we've seen them use it to his maximum ability. And I don't remember if it was you, Dan, or if someone else brought it up that before he got hurt last year, he was starting to play better. He did look like a more complete NFL player. So maybe there's something there. You traded a 3rd-round pick to get Kadarius Toney. You spent a 2nd-round pick last year on Sky Moore.
No, there's no arguments here.
Your most reliable downfield wide receiver this year is going to miss the next couple of weeks and credit to Justin Watson because he's found a nice niche in Kansas City. He's a nobody. Like he was a completely forgotten. There were Chiefs fans, and we know this for certain, last year who coming out of camp said, who's 84? Who is Watson? You mean the guy we drafted? No. The other Watson. Like, that's who Justin Watson is. And again, all the credit in the world to him. He's become a useful player for this offense. But that is, and I'm not going to say it's all misses. We're only a third of the way through the season, even less when you include the playoff run. And I understand that. But the returns are worrying on those two fronts. Toney has unfortunately been, for, the play in the Super Bowl made everything worth it. But in terms of for this season, the fact that you can't even necessarily rely on him being on the field and the lack of production while he's been on it has been concerning. And Moore has honestly been so invisible that it probably becomes a net negative because somebody else who maybe could make a play or run a route or do more than jog is not out there on the field. And it's extremely disappointing to me because I thought he was going to be really good this year. And he has done nothing.
Every one of us sat behind a microphone and said, yeah, this is a Sky Moore year. And people that are really tied into the team said, yes, this is the year Sky Moore takes a leap.
Do you remember what Jesse Newell said Sky Moore could hit in yards this year?
He said like 900 yards.
He could hit 900 yards.
Man, he'd need 30 games.
He'll get you 900 steps.
He's burned 900 calories.
What's funny is you got the reason why Toney hasn't been effective is because of one reason. He can't stay healthy. But we knew that. You knew Kadarius Toney couldn't stay healthy.
It was a gamble, and it appears to have paid off for last year's Super Bowl, but it has not paid off so far for a full season.
And Sky Moore is healthy but can't get open. Like, they need to combine. If you combine Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, you would get, a good wide receiver. Like, for real. That would be a good wide receiver because he's healthy, that skill set, hey, that'll work. But,
Skydarius Money.
Yeah.
We'll work on that one.
We're working.
I'd be okay with that. I really, really would. So,
but that's the concern is that you've now, it appears, burned some real capital. The money's whatever, but you've invested in two players that right now at a position of need are not producing for you. And we don't have to get into the long-term stuff either, but if Moore is not giving you anything, well, that's an open spot that needs to be filled going forward. If Toney cannot be, if he's not going to get a second contract because you can't rely on him, that's another spot in that group that's going to be open. MVS is, well, maybe he has to come back next year if they've got no other option. So those things are all on the table. And I know that's not of paramount importance right now, but it is a worry.
It is in the future. It is. We got plenty to get to. We are also going to be giving away a family 4-pack of K-State versus TCU tickets. That's right. It is a battle of the purples at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. We will be giving away those tickets coming up today here on 580 Sports Talk. So be listening for your chance to win K-State versus TCU tickets. Coming up next, the Chiefs are streaking, and it's incredible. We'll get to that. The Kansas City Chiefs are trying to catch the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the football. I was going to say, well, they could really improve on that.
The Kansas City Chiefs have the record for most consecutive games without losing by more than 7 points in NFL history. From 2017, that game they started against the Giants when they lost 12-9. Gosh, I remember that game. That game was a disaster. And then they made it all the way to 2020 before they lost to the Raiders at home by 8. That was the Circle, Arrowhead, and the bus game.
The victory lap.
Yeah. That was 49 straight games. That's including the playoffs. Okay? Including playoffs. 49 straight games by losing by more than 7 points, which I don't like 7 points. They need to do 8 because 8 is one possession.
Right.
So I don't really like that, but that's what the stat that I saw. Right now, the Chiefs have the 4th best streak already. It started in 2021. Remember when the Chiefs lost to Tennessee 27-3 and got just absolutely smacked? Boy, they got destroyed. They haven't lost by more than 7 points since then. 39 straight games. The next one is the Packers. Here's what's kind of crazy is it all involves our favorite teams. The Packers from 65 to 68 went 39 straight games. Now the Chiefs tied it. Packers from 2009 to 2011 went 45 straight games. Then Dan Seahawks from 2011 to 2014 went 46.
I should note here that streak was ended by Phillip Rivers and the Chargers. 30-21. I think it was week 3, 2014. I remember leaving a watering hole in disgust. Let's just say.
So they have gone since that 27-3 game have gone 39 straight games without losing by more than 7 points. So right now they are 10 games back of the record. So they could tie their own record at the end of the regular season. 49 straight.
It's pretty impressive.
That's nuts. Now, in between 2020 and 2021, they did lose a couple games by more than 7 points. Lost to Buffalo. Remember they got when Mahomes threw a couple interceptions.
Yeah.
They lost to the Super Bowl. The Bucks.
Yeah.
They got smacked by the Bucks. So they did lose a couple of those between 2020 and 2021 against Tennessee. But they've gone now. They've had 2 stretches, one that involves Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, and this current iteration of the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to ask you this. When do they lose a game by 8 points? So I'm going to give you the Chiefs +7 until you tell me otherwise. How long do they go? Do they make it all the way through the end of this year?
I think that's possible.
Yeah.
See,
there's no obvious example.
See, I will say I will give them until the end of the year when I expect them to have very little to play for and might sit their starters in week 18 at SoFi Stadium against the Chargers.
What Bills do you get on December 10th? Do you get the Bills that housed the Dolphins? Or do you get...
I get my Bills the first of the month.
Yeah. Or do you get the Bills team that barely beat the Giants?
When you get your Bills on the 10th? Boy, you get your Bills late, Brendan. I get mine like the first of the month. I think the Bills are the best team because I think the Bengals defense isn't very good.
I'm higher on the Bengals defense than you are, but that wasn't really my question. My question was, what version of the Bills are you going to get in that game? Are you going to get the kind that can put 48 up and win by 4 touchdowns against Miami, or the team that only lost because the Giants don't, or only beat the Giants because New York doesn't know how to tell time? Like, does that answers the question?
No, it does. I think the same thing answers the same question for the Bengals. Like, the Chiefs right now are the one team that has at least got consistency. They're consistent on defense and they're consistent on offense. Whereas the Bills have been up and down a couple different times because they lost to the Jets with backup Zach Wilson in. And then they should have lost to the Giants, but because Brian Daboll forgot that he had Saquon Barkley at the end of the game, and also the refs didn't help out, but you should have just handed the ball off to Saquon Barkley. That's what I would have done. But I don't know. So I'm gonna give you plus 7. You can take the rest of the. You think they get to 49?
I mean, I have no reason to believe they can't do that.
That's wild. That's crazy.
They're built to be in every game. The way their defense plays, and they're built to be in every single game. That's what this is a measure of course, is you generally, if you lost by a score, you were, unless you covered through the back door, so to speak, you were in it for 60 minutes.
We do have a submission for the combination Kadarius Toney Sky Moore. Skydarius Morney. I like it.
That is also what I said.
Oh, that's what you said?
Yes.
I thought you said something different.
I think you said Money.
Maybe I said Money.
I think we just added an R.
We're on the same page. Text from the 316. Same little bit of same brain going on.
I know.
I like that.
Skydarius Morney. I like it.
Skydarius is honestly
not a bad name.
I can't believe we haven't heard it.
Yeah, that's kind of a dope name. Who was it? Was it Baylor had a Lace Darius?
Yeah.
Lace Darius Dunn.
Yeah, that dude. No, he was one time, I think, the Big 12 all-time leading scorer, was he not?
Yeah, Lace Darius Dunn was a great player.
He could fill it up, man. Because Andre Emmett, I think, had the record. And I want to say Lace Dunn. I think he did.
Who has passed him? He's second all time. He was surpassed by 6 points. Who did it? Don't think too hard.
Tyler Self.
No.
Who is it?
But he healed.
Oh, yeah.
Buddy Buckets?
Yeah, Buddy Buckets.
We still clearly have some room to go and build and create new frontiers in the space of putting something before the name Darius in a first name.
Yeah, I'm with you. Coming up next, Paul Myerberg joins us to talk all things Big 12 football. Place Wine and Spirits hotline to talk with our Big 12 insider on the gridiron. He is Paul Myerberg from USA Today. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing a lot better than last week because I got Kansas State right. I got North Texas all over Temple. I'm just feeling really good about myself. Let's do this. I'm going to get everything right this week.
Oh, I like it. I
Love
like
it.
I like it. We're gonna need that midweek pick that we got to do here. All right. Who do you start, Avery Johnson or Will Howard, Paul?
You can't not start Avery Johnson. He ran for 5 touchdowns in a game. In a game, he had 5 touchdowns. I just don't understand, how much things can change to me. It's really wacky. I thought when we spoke last week, and I said something like, hey, after Texas Tech, they might need to think about what 2024 is going to look like and start trying to give this kid some time, beating Avery Johnson. And then you watch the game on Saturday, and he's 90% of the offensive puzzle. So I felt like last week I was over my skis, thinking maybe this could happen this season. It seems to me at this point, at the very least, he's got to play huge snaps every single week. He's got to give a different look. And I think at some point he's got to take over the starting role. So I'm going to be hesitant and say, let's do a 50-50 look like we did against Texas Tech. But at some point, it's got to be his offense. He's got some incredible running gifts. So they can get that whole package together. He's an all-conference guy.
Are you worried at all that the passing game, because it's just strictly running? They know they're going to run when he's in the game, but still they couldn't stop him, even though they knew he was going to run when the K-State was running. So how much do you worry about the passing attack and if he's not able to do, even half the playbook?
Yeah, that's a concern. But again, Will Howard has thrown a lot of interceptions this season. You know what I mean? So it's not like if Avery Johnson's back, if he's taking care of the football, he's necessarily a downgrade. If he protects the football and he gives them at least half the look that Will Howard could give you as a passer, then it's an advantage. It's a win for you. Still, having said that, will it catch up to you against TCU with their defense? Maybe not quite yet, but against Texas, if you can key on one factor of your offense without being balanced, that's going to be a problem. So, I think it's a transition, right, guys? And we've seen this across all these years of watching college football. It's rare that a freshman steps in even nowadays and is ready to rock and roll like Caleb Williams was. I mean, you got to transition this guy into the role, and I think Klein and these guys know the blueprint. So I have a feeling that by the end of this year, he's going to have a grasp of the entire scheme. If right now he's more at 50%.
When it comes to this game against TCU, we'll stay with the Cats. TCU's defense normally stops quarterback run, and TCU's going to be able to prepare for quarterback run. So how do you see this game evolving? TCU, of course, didn't look great in the first game against Colorado because they made so many mistakes, but they've had an up and down season since then. They pasted BYU. That wasn't even a game. How do you look at this K-State versus TCU game?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing with Hoover at quarterback, the young kid. I like the way their offense looked against BYU, the best that they looked all season, and that's without Chandler Morris. And all we heard all season is that Chandler Morris is going to be the guy. So I like the direction of the offense that it can take. It looked a lot more to me like what we were used to seeing out of TCU in terms of explosiveness. I still think, regardless of what we've seen defensively from TCU, and it's a pretty good unit, I think it's actually better than what people thought they would be back into the season. You can still run at this group. And I think West Virginia showed it, and Iowa State showed it. And even SMU, to a degree, though, with a more funky running game, showed it. So I think Kansas State looks at this matchup and says, hey, our secondary's got to step up and play. We've got to get after this freshman kid on third down, blah, blah, blah. But regardless, we can run at them. So I like the matchup for Kansas State. I think it's a game that you can set the tone against TCU. You can establish the run and kind of wear them down. But you got to be ready and willing to let this game, as almost like last week, let this get into the 30s. Because you're not going to absolutely win this one 21-17 with the way the TCU was on offense last week.
Do you think the TCU offense has enough dudes to get into the 30s against K-State's defense?
That's the problem, right? And that's the big question. I look at their receiver core, and we've watched them all season long. It's just not there. And it's not just because they had Quentin Johnson last season. They had Quentin Johnson, 2 and 3 other guys who would really stretch the field. They don't have those guys this season. And that's a win for Kansas State, right? I mean, that's a win. We saw at Missouri being the primest example. Kansas State on defense, they're going to succeed by making you put together drives, right? And they're not going to succeed if you're going to break a tackle and turn an 8-yard route into a 14-yard route. That's going to be a problem. So TCU doesn't strike fear into my minds as much as maybe another opponent would. I think Kansas State is going to match up well. I really do like the matchup. I think on both sides of the ball, Kansas State is plus against TCU.
Paul Myerberg is joining us here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Big 12 breakdown, as he does every week. You can go check out Paul's fantastic work covering college football in USA Today and at usatoday.com. From a Kansas school that won this past weekend, Paul, to one that lost a game that it probably shouldn't have lost, KU falls in Stillwater to Oklahoma State, led for most of the second half, but the Pokes fight back, and despite a couple of cowardly field goals by Mike Gundy, they come away with the win. Mm-hmm. Starting with the KU side of this, what can you really take away about this Jayhawks team after that game? Because they didn't run the ball well at all, which is their bread and butter, but you got one of the best games Jason Bean has ever played as their backup quarterback, throwing for over 400 yards. Defense gave up too many big plays. What's sort of your final evaluation of how KU played, especially down the stretch?
Yeah, this is not a loss that I would really shed a lot of tears over. I think there are definitely learning curve things that you're seeing. Learning curve things meaning, hey, when you're up by 8 points with a couple minutes left in the third quarter, you got to try to seal the deal here. And yeah, I think Mike Gundy has been through this so many times. I think he was had flashbacks of all the times he played Kansas, just thought, let's just get field goals. We'll have our chance, just stack field goals. I think Kansas kind of proved them right. But in the overall sense, why I think this is not a loss that you really shed a lot of tears over is, like you mentioned, we spoke last week and I said they can't let Jason Bean throw the ball 35 times a game. Then he does it against Oklahoma State for 410 and 5 touchdowns, and it shows you that there's a degree of flexibility within this offense that goes beyond scheme. I think personnel and scheme are starting to catch up a bit with what this team is about. So I thought this was if there is such a thing, and I think there still is for KU, this is a solid loss. The kind of loss where you see a lot of things you did well, a lot of things that you need to clean up, but you don't go into your bye week if you're KU thinking it's the end of the world. Because I thought this was still a solid matchup. Just got to play 60 minutes of football, and maybe KU's not quite at that point yet where they're going to play a complete 60 minutes in a tough environment like that.
On the other side, for Oklahoma State, I said before the season started that Mike Gundy reminds me a lot of Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, because no matter what the roster looks like or the other nonsense going on around the program, he's going to get you to a bowl game, just like Tomlin's going to get you to 8 wins, 9 wins every single season. Do you think this Oklahoma State team has maybe started to figure things out?
Yeah, first off, I've never heard that comparison, but it's such a good one. That's so good. Tomlin, like Gundy, going into the year when Tomlin or when the Cowboys are not going to win the Big 12 or the AFC or the Super Bowl, when that's going to happen. But you also look at him and look what he's built, and you never really quite know when it could still pop or when you could think they're going to go 4-8 and they go 7-5. They are clearly figuring something out. It has helped to be back home. I think that loss to South Alabama led into Iowa State. They got a chance to reboot against these sunflower teams, and they're back on track. The question I have after watching them play KU is that I still don't really know what they are, right? I think one thing you can say compared to early in the season, that Alan Bowman is just going to be much more careful with the football. He's extremely limited as a guy. He's 37 years old. He's got a bad back. He's just been around too long. You know what you're going to get. But he's avoiding turnovers. And I think as an offense, that's the key to the whole deal for them, right? It's just let's be careful, let's be safe, and let's allow the kind of skill players that we still have to carry the load. So I think they have figured something out. I don't think that this is a team that's going to beat Texas or beat OU if push came to shove. But yeah, I think this is still a 7 or 8 win team. And based off how we wrote them off after South Alabama, I just think it's another great coaching job so far by Gundy.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Paul Myerberg from USA Today. He joins us to talk college football, specifically Big 12 football, on the Big 12 Breakdown every Thursday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Again, you can check out Paul's work at USA Today and check him out on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, we're going to give you our dumpster juice game of the week here in a little bit, but the Big 12 has a dumpster juice game of the week this week. Baylor at Cincinnati. These are two teams that have not covered themselves in glory so far this season, and we know that the track record for the Big 12 newcomers against established Big 12 teams is not strong. That being said, Cincinnati is favored in this game against Baylor. What is your outlook for this one? Is this where Baylor can maybe get things turned around, or do you think they're really in a pit and that they might end up having a bad time at Nippert Stadium?
Yeah, I can't see that happening. I think Cincinnati, based off what we've seen the last about 3 to 4 weeks, is the worst team in the Big 12. I don't think Baylor's that much better, but I'm like struggling with the concept that Baylor could lose at or versus Cincinnati or against Cincinnati on the Boone or an aircraft carrier. Like I'm struggling with the concept that they could lose to Cincinnati, but it's very, very, very doable and very clearly could happen. And I think it kind of raises an interesting point, right? Like Dave Aranda has been praised a lot, rightfully so, as a coordinator and even as a head coach. But I'm beginning to think and believe that we're at a point going to the second half of the year where if things go the way that they kind of look like they've been going, and look, they are a miraculous comeback away from 1-5, that if they go 3-9 this season or they go 4-8, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are looking at people like Jeff Traylor and otherwise who might want to get to the front of the line to get someone like that. So this is a big game, big game, I think, for Baylor and Aranda. Because if they lose this one, clearly this is a 3-win team, and I think that would be real trouble for his future there.
Oklahoma State and West Virginia was not a matchup that anybody would have circled on the Big 12 calendar before this season, but these are two teams that have surprised with their results in conference play so far. You've already talked about Oklahoma State. They head to Morgantown this week. How do you handicap that matchup? What do you see as the key to that matchup? And does the winner have a real chance at maybe having an eye on being a spoiler and picking off a spot in the conference championship game?
Yeah, I mean, the winner could definitely be in position to do that. I mean, I would like Oklahoma State more to do that than I would West Virginia. I think West Virginia lost the plot, I mean, against Houston that fourth quarter. I mean, not just because of what happened in the last seconds, but just in general, the control of that game slipped away, and you saw a team that once they got out of their comfort zone and had to run with Houston, that just wasn't where they want to be. So I think Oklahoma State as a team is not Oklahoma. They're not Texas. They're not even Kansas. I think overall on offense, but I do think that they can put West Virginia in a spot where they get really, really, really uncomfortable. So that's my pick. I think Oklahoma State is the better team. West Virginia, maybe we'll look back and think, oh man, I can't believe we praised Neil Brown. I just don't know how great they are, how good they are. So I think Oklahoma State is definitely a safer spot.
Of all of the newcomers to the Big 12 this year, I anticipated that BYU would be able to be more competitive than they've been. Cincinnati and UCF and Houston having their struggles hasn't been a surprise, but the way that BYU has played, losing by 33 to TCU last week was really a startling result, at least as far as I saw it. I thought BYU would be more competitive than this in their first year in the league. Is that a sign of things to come and they're going to get dog walked again at home by Texas Tech, or is there a second half rally in Kalani Sitake's Cougars?
Yeah, this is what I'm struggling with BYU for the same reason. I thought they'd hold up a lot better up front than they have. And that's not just on offense, but on defense in particular. I've been really unimpressed with their ability to stand up at the point of attack against Big 12 Power 5 offensive lines. So that's my big concern. I think Texas Tech is an angry football team. I mean, you saw the way they played against Kansas State. It's almost like they couldn't believe that they were getting run off the field. So I think that they're going to beat BYU. And if you're looking at BYU the rest of the way, they still got Texas and Oklahoma State. So if they can get to 6 wins, I think that'd be a huge, huge progress for the program. I am surprised. For me, I'm surprised that UCF has been this bad. And I'm worried about their mental state and whether they're going to really think from this point forward. But yeah, BYU seemed like the easiest one to peg to have 6 or 7 wins because of how mature they are as a team. But that doesn't seem to be the case, especially up front.
All righty, Paul. Who's the third best team in the Big 12 right now, today, October 19th?
I still think it's Kansas State, guys. Like Oklahoma and Texas are 1, 2, 1A, 1B, whatever. I don't believe it's Iowa State. I don't believe it's Oklahoma State. I don't believe it's Kansas. It's got to be Kansas State. I mean, it's either Kansas State or Oklahoma State. I'm not ready to say the Cowboys are that team. So it's K-State, and look, Texas is coming in a couple weeks? That's the be-all, end-all for them.
All righty. Does Oklahoma go undefeated the rest of the way?
Well, they've gotten to their hard one, right? And I think that's their big test. The biggest one left for me is, I mean, can you beat Kansas on the road? Probably. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much smooth sailing unless you think Oklahoma State's going to have like a whole bag of knives out for Oklahoma in the final meeting, which is a possibility. But yeah, I would bet that they go undefeated. No. Hold on. My brain is saying no. 11-1, no. Seems like very safe. They got 6 games left. I can't see them losing more than 1.
All right, Paul, real quick, a couple of questions outside of the Big 12, and you know how much I love garbage football. Before we get to our pick, though, number one, is Rutgers going to be bowl eligible before the end of October? Because they play Indiana, and they're already 5-2, and Indiana is horrendous. Is that going to happen? Are we going to get Schiano back in a bowl?
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, they beat Michigan State last week, and like out of absolutely nowhere, they were down by 18 in the fourth quarter, and I think won by 3. So yeah, this is Rutgers. They haven't had a traditional bowl bid since 2014. It would be very Rutgers for them to lose this game. I don't see them doing that. They're like a sparky bunch. Like they're not good by any stretch of the imagination, but they will like get up. They'll get up in your face. So I'm not saying watch Rutgers, but if you are watching Rutgers, maybe you will enjoy. You might enjoy what you see.
All right. We've got to get to our dumpster juice pick of the week. And we don't have a ton of truly awful games this week, which is nice in the college football slate. So I had 2 to choose from, and I'm not going to make you pick another game involving Akron. We will not include the Zips this week.
Please.
So we are going to...
It's like Survivor Pool rules. You only pick
you only pick them once. All right. We are going to the Mountain West in a game that is not even on cable. You either need to live in Hawaii and buy it on pay-per-view or download the Team One Sports app for this one. Hawaii is at New Mexico. Both are 2-win teams. New Mexico's terrible. Hawaii is fun bad, but they're still very bad. Who you got?
Yeah, I got Hawaii. You're exactly right. Hawaii is fun bad. And you look, outside of Oregon, Hawaii hasn't played that badly this season. I watched the UNLV game. They were competitive to a stretch against a team that's 5-1. Vanderbilt and Stanford, they kind of hung around. I'm going with the Rainbow Warriors, not just to mention Timmy Chang is their quarterback, is their coach. If you're a college football lifer, you remember watching Timmy Chang.
Oh yeah.
On the college ESPN game plan that you paid $280 for back in 2004. So I'm all about the Rainbow Warriors. Let's go Hawaii.
All righty. Last 2 questions for you. The first one, right now, who's in the college football playoff? If you had to choose the 4 teams, who's in it?
Okay, so I'm going to go obviously with. Well, I'm still going to say Georgia. I think missing Brock Bowers is going to be huge. I'm going to go with them still. I'm going to go with Michigan. I think Michigan's the best team in college football. I'm going to say Oregon, despite the loss. Oregon's going to get in there. And lastly, I think Texas beats Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game. So they're your 4.
All right, who's the Heisman winner right now? If you had to vote for the Heisman on the 19th, 1, 2, and 3.
Number 1 will be Michael Penix. It's a sellout at this point. It's a cop-out, but he is the guy, and I can't dispute it. My number 2 would be Brock Bowers. I mean, it's not going to happen from here, but the way that he played for Georgia and the importance that he played in that team, I think speaks for itself. And then number 3, I don't have a number 3. Those are my 2, though. And Michael Penix right now, I mean, he won't win it because this is how the world goes. But if it ended today, he'd be almost unanimous. He's been dominant.
So who do you think will win it then?
I don't know.
It's like the first year that we've had one of these type of situations.
I know.
It's kind of nice.
I know. You're absolutely right. It's awesome and it's great. I just don't know right now. It's obviously going to be a quarterback. If it wasn't Michael Penix, I mean, look at the guys that you could have a big Saturday. Drew Alar for Penn State. He has a big day against Ohio State. That makes some noise. Dylan Gabriel right now is someone who's making noise. He's got to keep it up. So there are other guys on the fringes. But Penix, as long as he doesn't hit the skids, he's probably going to win it. It's just how many times has a guy been number 1 on October 19th and went on to win it, especially in the last 5 years? I feel like it doesn't happen anymore.
Paul, as always, we appreciate the time, my friend.
Okay, thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
Paul Myerberg, the best, the absolute best. Love talking with Paul. Coming up, we're going to talk a little Big 12 tiers here on 580 Sports. Sports Talk hour number 2 here on this Thursday. Jake Long, Brandon Dorzinski, Dan Lucero with you. Thanks, as always, to Paul Myerberg for dropping a lot of knowledge and some laughter on us on our weekly segment. Love talking with Paul on all things Big 12 football. Speaking of Big 12 football, in K-State, we've got a 4-pack of tickets we're going to give away in the 4 o'clock hour. So an hour from right now, you have a chance to win 4 tickets to K-State TCU. So be listening an hour from right now. We'll talk with Rick Peterson coming up at the bottom of this hour. Also, I got a great either or for you guys. I'm excited about it.
Okay.
So we'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429. Also, go to our YouTube page. We'll talk more about the Chiefs and the Chargers, including something that we found out today that I had no idea. But Dave Tobe dropping some, it was a Tobe bomb, if you will. All right.
Tobe bomb.
That's a Tobe bomb. What he said today during his weekly press conference, I never thought would have occurred. And now I kind of want it to occur just to see it, especially against the Chargers.
All right.
So we'll get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Right now, though, we had some fun yesterday with Big 12 football, or Big 12 basketball media day. And we're going to try to scoot through this, but due to the McCole Hardman and Frank Clark news yesterday, that kind of dive bombed what we were going to do. So I thought we could do it right now because the basketball season is going to start here soon, and it's always fun. People love rankings. We love ranking stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our society does all the time. In fact, that's what Get Up and the Stephen A. Smith show and the other show, that's what they do. They just rank stuff, and then they yell and scream. So we are going to rank.
You missed LeBron debate. We don't do that part, though.
No, we don't do that. Is LeBron good?
The greatest thread in the history of forums.
Yes, he is. Fun fact.
Is LeBron a libertarian?
He's good. So we're going to rank first, go through your rankings as team, and then we'll do the coaches. Okay.
Okay. Coach ranking.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did coach rankings too. Well,
okay.
I can just do here. I'll just whip through my coach rankings real quick. Okay. On the, and we're doing it by, I don't know what it's called, the tier maker, app that you can use and all that. So we're going to do that. So real quick, my coach rankings, the S tier, Bill Self. That's it. He's in his own tier.
The self tier.
S Self. He's on his own tier. Then I got my A tier, which is Scott Drew, Jerome Tang, Kelvin Sampson. My B tier is TJ Otzelberger, Porter Mosier, and Jamie Dixon. My C tier is Mark Pope from BYU, Johnny Dawkins from UCF, and Mike Boynton from Oklahoma State. I'm a C tier. Not great, but not terrible. And then my to be determined tier is McCaslin at Tech, Miller at Cincinnati, because I don't know how they're going to do in this league. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then Terry for Texas, because he didn't recruit any of those dudes. Okay?
Right.
That was all Chris Beard. So Rodney Terry. And then he's not Bob Huggins tier, is Mr. Eiler. That's what I got. That's my coach's tier.
So I should have taken note of that, I think, because that was a lot to digest. Why is Porter Mosier in your B tier?
Because he took a team to a Final Four, and I think he's above average coach. But right now, as of late, he hasn't done well with Oklahoma. I'll put him in the B tier. He's a better coach and done more than Boynton, Dawkins, and Pope. So I'll put him in the B tier. B's are okay. He's an okay coach. He's not great, but he's an okay coach.
Yeah.
Where do you put him in, like D or TBD? Not Bob Huggins.
So who'd you put with your B group? Who was your B group?
Otzelberger, Mosierberger, and Dixonberger. Yeah, don't get mad at my rank.
I'm not
my
mad. Gee, someone is being extremely defensive, and it's not me. I'm just saying Porter Moser in 2 seasons at Oklahoma is precisely 1 game over 500 overall and is 12 games under 500 in conference play with 1 NIT appearance and no trips to the tournament.
And if it weren't for UCF, I might be picking them to finish 14th in the Big 12 this year.
I like Porter Moser. I remember when he got hired at Oklahoma saying, no, this is awesome, perfect, love it, everything is great. I like Moser. I just don't think what they've done at Oklahoma, and now for a second year in a row, turning over that whole roster pretty much.
Okay.
I have some concerns.
Okay. All right, let's get to our team rankings now. All right.
Do you have any notes about the coaches, higher, lower?
Would
you put Drew at A? Because I know you're not a Drew guy.
I would have.
I mean, you have to.
I would have Drew and Sampson A tier. My B tier would be Tang and Dixon.
I agree with that.
I can't. Tang did a wonderful job year 1. I can't put him on a tier with guys who've been to multiple Final Fours.
Okay.
You know,
I like him a lot. That's not a knock. I just got to put the multiple guys with multiple Final Fours in the A tier.
All I'm saying, who had a better record in their first year as Kansas State head coach, Jerome Tang or Bruce Weber? I'm just asking questions.
Bruce Weber?
Bruce Weber.
Okay.
I'm just trying to stir the pot. Jerome Tang's an awesome coach, but I agree. I think I need a little bit more. I would stretch out those top tiers a little bit more, I think. I really liked...
I think I would also put Otzelberger and McCaslin in a please don't make me watch your teams play basketball tier.
McCaslin talked about that yesterday. Someone asked him about being the slowest team in the country, and I wasn't quite paying full attention when the question was asked, but I could tell he was like, Doug, you don't have to insult my team like this. Like, come on. And he
don't play like that.
Well,
man.
he pretty much said that, like, just because that's what he's done before, don't necessarily expect that's exactly what he'll do. Like, they're not going to all of a sudden be run and gun. But he essentially said, based on the players we had, that's what led to us winning. So we just kept doing it.
Yeah.
I would expect with better athletes at Tech, they will be a little bit less like that. I like listening to him speak, though. Him and Wes Miller, I was really impressed by hearing those
I'd
two.
put them in their own tier. Then my C tier probably be Mosier, Pope, and I want to like Mike Boynton, and I personally like him a lot. His teams don't win.
They don't, man.
Like they at some point, teams got to win, and they don't win. They don't win anything.
He is going into year 7.
They've been there a while.
7 years. They've been to the NIT twice and the NCAA tournament once with the best player in the country.
And that shows you how well liked he is, because if he weren't a likable guy, a charismatic guy, somebody you want to root for, he'd probably been fired already. With those results.
One time in 6 years, they've had a winning record in the Big 12.
Let's get to the teams now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. My S team. KU. That's it. It's KU. No one else. They're on their own. Really good teams. Houston, Baylor, and Texas. My could be good. TCU and K-State. I got to see more from K-State. When you lose we're talking like we had the discussion of whether or not Marquise Noel is going to go in the rafters. Do you lose that type of guy at Kansas State and you lose Keontae Johnson, who was an All-American? I need, Kaluma and Tyler Perry have a lot of big shoes to fill, okay? So it could be good, K-State. Then I got how do the transfers play? Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State, because they got a bunch of transfers. Then I got team without Bob Huggins. That's West Virginia. They will be better than what you think. That's Oklahoma. And then bad teams, BYU, UCF, and Cincinnati. That's my rankings.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
All right. Question number 1. Why does Baylor escape the we need to see how the transfers play tier?
Because Baylor is always good, it seems like. So I'm going to give Scott Drew and that program.
Baylor gets a little more benefit of the
They
doubt.
Okay.
They get a pass.
I think I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Because they have a very new roster this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're going to be bad. I think they'll be quite good. I think Ray J. Dennis is a nice player. I think he's going to be a really good Big 12 point guard. There's a lot of movement there.
But they always figure it out.
Why will Oklahoma be better than we think?
Because I think Porter Moser is a good coach, and I think they will be better. Because also, BYU, UCF, and Cincinnati's not very good. They'll pop maybe West Virginia. I don't know how Eilert's going to do. I didn't know where to put West Virginia because that's why I had to say the team without Bob Huggins. But I think Oklahoma will be better. They may not. That's what I'm going to ride with.
I am not disagreeing because it's just your opinion. How many players can you name on Oklahoma's roster?
2.
They would be
Steve. No, who was it? I looked them up yesterday because I didn't know a ton about them. But I think Porter Mosier's a good coach, and I think they'll find a way to be better than what they thought.
How many Oklahoma players can you name?
Other than Uzan and Owe, I got nothing for you. I know Latrey Darthard, or however you pronounce his last name. I think it is Darthard.
I think it is.
He's there. He was the transfer from I think Utah Valley, and was a good player for them last year. And then they got a bunch of other guys who are brand new to the program.
That's my big because again, I like Mosier, but
McCollum. Don't they have a McCollum? Is it CJ's brother who was because he went to Siena too?
Something with a J.
Javian.
Yeah,
Javian McCollum.
Yep.
Yeah.
He is not, by the way, related in any form or fashion to CJ McCollum.
I like Mosier, but I think this is one of the worst rosters in the league, and I think there's a steep drop off from the middle tier roster to the basement rosters, and I think Oklahoma is in that basement group. I hope I'm wrong because I like Mosier as a coach and fun personality. You see the thing little clip from him and Bill Self during the coach's picture yesterday?
Yeah, that's funny.
Where he said, I don't want to stand too close to Bill because someone will call a foul, and Self said only at home. That's very funny. Anyway.
Some coaches thought that was funnier than other coaches.
Yeah, Scott Drew had the fakest laugh of all time after he said that.
I just think that's Scott Drew's laugh.
Yeah.
No.
I think you're underestimating just how corny Scott Drew is, Brendan.
No, listen,
that's what
no one is going to underestimate. I am not going to.
Who do you got? Give me your rank.
All right, well, KU is number 1 alone.
So number 1?
Well, okay, S tier, whatever. I don't have the thing in front of me.
Well, I just made my own.
So, yes, KU is the top tier, the S tier, the premium tier, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
I have one team in the second tier, and that's Houston. That's the only team I've got there. I've got a much bigger group after that. It is the I got to see it, and I will believe it group that I think they'll be good, but I need to have a little bit more proof of it. That includes Texas with a much different roster. They kept more than I thought they were going to keep, and I will give Rodney Terry credit for that. I didn't give him a lot of credit for much last year, but I will give him credit for at least keeping some of those pieces that he could keep. I think Baylor is in that group. Losing Cryer is probably not as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be, but I do think they've got a lot of turnover, and he was the best player they did probably lose, who stayed in college basketball anyway. I think TCU is in that mix. I think TCU will probably be good.
That's what I said. They could be good.
But, Damian Ball was a really good Big 12 player. Mike Miles was a really good Big 12 player. I like Emmanuel Miller. I love Ernest Uday. And I think they are probably going to be good, but I've got to see a little bit more evidence of it. And I think Kansas State is in that same group. And again, I think they'll be good. But you added Kaluma. You added Perry. Your 2 best players on the team had to be replaced, and you brought in 2 guys who have never played in this system before. Mm-hmm. And I still think Tomlin is a little bit of a wild card. I was joking about asking the question of Jerome Tang yesterday. Honestly, I don't really feel like I got a straight answer about what Naquan Tomlin's role is going to be this year. At least not what I was expecting to hear. So I need to see it a little bit more. I think Gasson is a big question mark for K-State.
I think they really like Gasson.
I think they do too. And I think he can be a really nice presence down low. With just an average offensive game, he can be a nice piece. But I think there needs to be some development there. After that, my next tier of teams would be, so my C tier, they'll win 9-ish games in the league. I think Iowa State is right there. I think Texas Tech is in that group as well. And I'm going to put West Virginia there because West Virginia did add talent. Now, they've lost some of it that they added in the portal, but Jesse Edwards is a really good player. And Kirk Kriisa, as much as he annoys me,
who's the cat from the mid-major?
Are you thinking of Jose Perez?
No.
From Manhattan?
He's already left.
Yeah, he's already gone.
Arizona State.
Yeah.
Well, say already. He spent 2 years in limbo there. It was a really crappy situation.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of which player you might be thinking of, Jake.
Let me. I'll look for it. Keep going.
Oh, you're thinking of Raekwon Battle.
Played, yeah. K-State.
Raekwon Battle, good player.
He was awesome.
But you got to ask the question about Eilert in his first year there. So there's still some questions, and their roster not quite as tip-top shape as it was going into the year. So that's my true middle class tier. And then beyond that, to be frank, it is the not really relevant to the discussion of the best teams in the Big 12 tier, and that's Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and then the remaining newcomers
BYU,
outside of Houston, BYU, Cincinnati, and
UCF.
UCF.
Okay.
UCF and BYU, I think the two of them in particular, it's going to be ugly this year.
Okay.
I think Mark Pope is maybe not going to last very long in the Big 12.
What do you got, Dan?
All right, yep. Like you guys, I have the KU tier, and it's KU because it's the only team in this league that I think can win a national championship this year. That's the only team I think that has that ceiling as a team that can win a national championship. I have a league contender tier, which I think maybe they can put it together in the regular season, and it's a credit to, I think, the talent level and also the coaching, and that's the Baylor and Houston tier for me, or the B tier because it's BU next to UH. So you put their logos together. You know, when Baylor plays Texas Tech, we call it butt. So when Baylor next to Houston is buh.
That's pretty funny.
I just think maybe it's only funny to me. Like we talk about Baylor losing a lot, but they've got some really talented freshmen, Jacoby Walter and Eves Missy, that I think are going to be really good players in the league. Houston lost their best players too, and I like the addition of LJ Cryer. You guys know I'm high on him, and Jamal Shedd's a really, really good player too. They're going to be really good. I'm just not sure that they're on, again, that level where Kansas exists as a national championship contender. But Baylor and Houston are next up. Then I have Texas, Kansas State, and TCU in the surefire tournament team tier. I think those teams are no doubt about it going to play in March and maybe have a chance to get to the second weekend, depending on how things.
I like that tourney tier.
Yeah, surefire tournament tier. Those are teams that are absolutely going to get to the tournament, barring some real shenanigans. Because I think highly of Jamie Dixon at TCU. I think that's a good roster. I think they'll win 20-odd games and make the tournament again. I think K-State's ceiling is the highest of the three teams in that tier because I believe in their coaching. I believe in the talent they brought in.
Where do you got Texas?
I don't know about Rodney Terry, man. I think Rodney Terry got the interim bump last year, and you look at his coaching track record before that, it wasn't really that promising. I like their players.
You mean you weren't dead set on his mediocre record at what, UTEP?
Yes. Yeah, he went 500 in Conference USA with Sule Boom on his roster, who was one of the best players in Big East last year. So, yeah, go figure that. Like, I like their players. Dessou back, he's really good. They got a good front court. Max Asmus is going to score in this league. But I think of those three teams in that tier, Kansas State has the highest ceiling. I have the please don't make me watch you if I just admit you're good tier. That's Iowa State. Wholly unpleasant viewing experience. But they have some really good players, and I think they're going to make the tournament as well.
No more Caleb Grill.
Where's he at?
Don't care.
Mizzou?
Yeah. Good call. Good pull. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is right.
My
Dennis Gates' downfall.
Then I have my borderline tournament teams. I like West Virginia's roster maybe more than it sounds like you guys do. Jesse Edwards was a big pickup.
Yeah.
Raekwon Battle from Montana State. K-State fans might remember him. Battle was the guy who made every shot in that game for Montana
every
State.
Jumper.
Yeah, and made it respectable. That game respectable for longer than it maybe should have been. I like their roster, and I think that's I think they have tournament talent on the roster. We'll see how Josh Eilert is as an in-game coach, but that's a borderline tournament team for me. And I put Texas Tech in that range too because I like Grant McCasland and his teams have won, and so they're a borderline tournament team for me. And then I have the hell tier, and that's the Oklahoma schools and the three other newcomers, Cincinnati, BYU, and UCF. I don't think those teams have a tournament ceiling. I think a lot would have to go right for any of those five teams to approach the kind of record they're going to need to have to go to the NCAA tournament.
I always like to remark about this. Jamie Dixon has done a pretty incredible job at TCU.
Boy, has he ever.
How many times has TCU gone to back-to-back tournaments?
Never.
In program history.
I don't think they ever did. Maybe once.
Before the last 2 years, I don't know if that's ever happened.
It happened once before when the tournament was 16 teams. 1952 and 1953. Those are the old, and they didn't win again, or they.
Hey, that's kind of like 1927, scoregami.
Well, yeah, in the seeded era, so 86 onwards, 86, right? The 64 team era.
Yeah,
they've been to back-to-back tournaments all of one time, and that is last year and the year before. He has taken them to the tournament 3 times since taking over, even including the prehistoric tournament era. They've only made 10 appearances.
Has he ever won an NCAA tournament game with TCU?
Twice. He won one this year and last year.
Oh, that's right, because they lost in the second round. That's right.
Yeah, they lost a heartbreaker to Gonzaga.
Yep.
In fact, they've lost either a one-score game or an overtime game each of the last two tournaments in the second round.
They win they're always the 8-9 team, it seemed like.
Yeah.
They were the 6th seed last year, if I remember.
They've been
correctly.
the 6 twice under Dixon and the 9 under Dixon. Yeah. But no, they have never been to a Sweet 16 in the 64-team era.
So at the end of the day, I'll say 8. I'll say one of West Virginia or Texas Tech makes the tournament. So I think 8 teams from the Big 12 are going to make the NCAA tournament.
Ooh.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of those two makes it in. Iowa State will freaking get in and play another dog water game in the first round.
Might go to
they
Dayton.
did.
That
Well, they
Pitt
scored
game.
like 12 points in the first 30 minutes against Pitt.
And they almost came back and won.
We were in Des Moines during that game, and where Dan and I had set up, we were against the back wall of the media work area. And
Did you get yelled at?
no, thank
Not
God.
this year.
No, although we did get side-eyed during What Is Wrong With You one day. There was one like particularly gross story, and the guy next to Dan kept looking over like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, maybe I should have shelved that one. Maybe that wasn't for the public. Yeah.
But it was not a super well set up TV arrangement in the media area in Des Moines. Like there were 4 TVs, but they were all at angles and they were all on the same wall. So the one TV though that had the Iowa State Pitt game was down several rows. And every time we looked over there, like get to a commercial break after a segment, Dan would say, yeah, they only have like 19 combined points in 10 minutes. Then it was, they only have 25 combined points at halftime or whatever it was. Every time we looked up.
That game set basketball back 70 years. They could have played it with
And
Peach
they
baskets.
almost came back and won. They did. Coming up next, we got a little either or, and then we'll talk with Rick Peterson. All righty, for my either or, I'm going to have you make this answer, okay? You guys realize that the NFL is not only allowing but encouraging players to participate in the flag football 2028 LA Olympics?
I saw that.
Okay, you get to choose like flag football guys like who do this. And I hope you guys know like flag football is so competitive. Like, and there are different rules. It's a different game.
The AFFL.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a
Did you ever
different.
play as a kid, or were you all tackle football all the time?
Oh no, man! We played. We played flag football after I got done with actual football in college. The city had 2 years we played it.
Oh, okay.
We won every game. It was basically all the old washed up Washburn guys, which probably wasn't fair. We were actually running our own plays.
Not just go out and turn left.
No, we actually had like, yeah, it was probably not fair. They probably shouldn't have let us play. I think we won every game by like 50.
My only year of organized football as a kid was flag football.
But they're saying, hey, NFL guys, you get to choose NFL players or you get to choose actual flag football guys who do this. Who are you taking?
NFL players.
Yeah, I'll take the NFL players.
You know what the American Flag Football League doesn't have? Tyreek Hill.
That's true.
Imagine Micah Parsons. Like, he's said he wants to do this. It is very funny.
He wouldn't be good. And here's the reason why. It is a different you can't make any contact. There's no contact in flag football.
No, but you don't think that Micah Parsons has the physical ability to get to somebody and grab the flag? Like, you don't think he can do that quicker than
the offenses that they
some
run
dude that
are
is
like Tyreek
plays
Hill,
competitive flag football, but also like works at a bank?
Like Kelsey wouldn't even, I don't know, be on there because he's not. You have to be so quick to do flag football. Like you need to watch a game because
I've watched it. It's on NFL Network.
Yeah, the NFL or the flag football offenses are completely different. So I think a lot of people are undervaluing the flag footballers because that is what they do. That is what they know.
Here is my retort to that because I think it's a fair point. It does not matter if you can't catch them. And nobody who plays in the American Flag Football League, save for literally the former NFL players, can catch an NFL player.
Okay, so you said Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill's going to be 33 when 2028 comes up.
There are other fast guys.
No, but
Devin Achane.
Okay, but that's fine. Like, you gave Tyreek Hill, he's going to be 32 or 33.
He'll still be the fastest player on the field. Yes. Yes.
Well,
I don't know.
Team Jamaica might borrow some sprinters.
No, I'm taking all NFL players.
Huh?
I would not take a single player from the American Flag Football League.
No.
Best of luck learning like Uzbeki and getting a second.
Do you think
citizenship.
NFL owners will let him do it? I don't think they will.
I think they will.
Ooh, I wouldn't.
Growing the game.
I would not let any of my guys.
Jamar Chase mossing some dude on Team Lithuania in the corner of the end zone.
I would not let them play flag football.
That's the other thing about the offense. Like, those dudes don't got hops like Jamar Chase does. You just lob it up.
But I wouldn't let my team play. I wouldn't let them do it. I'm not risking you tearing an ACL playing flag football. Like, I wouldn't do it.
I mean, I guess it depends who it is.
Like Jamar Chase, Devin Achane, Justin Jefferson. I'm not letting my players do that.
Would you let MVS?
Well, no, because he's going to be like 34. I wouldn't want him on my team.
Okay, well, we're using an example of now. I can't give you like an 8th grader who's going to be in the NFL at that point.
Well, in 4 years, an 8th grader is going to be a senior, so he's not going to be in the NFL.
Okay, fine. A college freshman. Like, okay, Zach Branch at USC. You think Team Canada, you think Team UK in the flag football Olympic Games is going to be able to catch Zach Branch? No. You know how I know? Because Pac-12 players can't catch Zach Branch.
I like MVS, like right now. Yeah, sure, I'd let him because I don't know if he's going to be on the Chiefs next year. But like the quarterbacks, too. To me, like, you guys talked everything about skill players, but you haven't even mentioned the quarterbacks. Like, that's the biggest difference here.
Well, yeah, but that's. I'm trying to make it a discussion because if you say like my team gets Patrick Mahomes and Team Wales gets, Tom Wonderman, it does not matter. Mahomes is gonna be standing with his back to the field, like throwing overhead, and it's going to be a touchdown on every play.
How old Kirk Cousins going to be for these Olympics? Man, he'd be an incredible flag football quarterback. Yeah. Just dicing up Team Liechtenstein in the qualifying rounds.
The team Bosnia-Herzegovina rolling out.
Real quick, either or. NFL or college football? Which one is Jim Harbaugh coaching in next year?
College football is clearly trying to annoy Jim Harbaugh out of college football.
Yeah.
But if the rumors are true that Michigan wants to make Harbaugh the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, I think maybe he sticks around and tries to defend the national title they're going to win.
Yeah. College football.
I have a quick one as well. This one came from a texter. One of our frequent texters from 785 had this the other day, and I've held on to it for this segment. For the following 6 quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa, over under combined, and I'm going to raise the number, 1.5 Super Bowl wins.
Under. If you gave me a half, because I did see that text, I would say over. Because I think one of them will win one. 2 of them, I can't go that much.
You're really thinking Mahomes is going to hoard them for the next decade.
Well, I think Mahomes is going to hoard them, but I also think that there's a quarterback here and a quarterback there that, like the 49ers are probably going to be in the mix at some point in time.
What's the time frame?
Career.
In perpetuity.
Over. Good quarterbacks win Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Well, Herbert's not a good quarterback, so eliminate him because he's on the Chargers. They'll never win anything, so don't got to worry about that.
If we're eliminating guys from franchises who never win anything, then the only guy who's really relevant to this is Jalen Hurts.
There you go. Because I don't think Tua's going to win a Super Bowl. Because they're going to pay Tua, and then you can't have Tyreek Hill and a high-paid Tua and that. So I don't think that's going to work. Now, he could right now over the next 2 years, but I don't think they're going to win one this year. So I don't think Herbert will. I don't think Tua will. And that leaves what? Burrow, Allen, Hurts. They might win 2. Yeah, they might win 2.
Yeah, that's an easy over for me.
My thought is over, too.
Easy over.
Yeah, I said easy over at a half for sure. One of them will get one, of that 5. Coming up next, we'll talk with Rick Peterson on our Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound.
It's time for the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound on 580 Sports Talk. As we're joined by Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. Nobody covers our local teams and prep sports better than Pistol. You can check out all of his work at TopSports.news. And, of course, you can go check him out on Twitter at Peterson_Rick is his handle there. Are you ready for some regular season finale football this weekend, Pistol?
I am, the next 2 nights, so I'm ready for it. And then it's just a case of seeing where everybody ends up for the playoffs.
How much time do you spend before the brackets are announced trying to break down all the different possibilities of how they could unfold? Because I spent a lot of time this past weekend figuring it out.
Now, starting like last week and this week, I do. Until then, I don't even mess with it because I know they can just change so drastically from over the last couple of weeks. But last week I started looking at them, and the last couple of days I've really been looking at them close.
And we will get to a team coming up in a few minutes who had their entire postseason outlook potentially changed due to some off-the-field worries for one of their opponents. We'll get to Highland Park here in just a few minutes. First, let's start with tonight's game, Pistol. Washburn Rural 7-0, Topeka West 1-6, an old Centennial League matchup taking place at Hummer Sports Park. We'll be there with coverage beginning at 6:40 tonight here on 580 WIBW. Washburn Rural, Centennial League champions. If they win tonight, and I would assume that is the expectation, Washburn Rural will end up being the number 1 seed in the 6A West. That's a big deal, and you know that Steve Bueller's group, Pistol, is not going to overlook anybody and is going to make sure they take care of business tonight.
Well, the whole thing for Washburn Rural is staying sharp. Now, having said that, I don't think Steve will play his top players, his starters, more than a half. Maybe 1 or 2 series in the third quarter, but they just want to get some reps in, do what they need to work on going into next week. What a season it's been for them. The only 6 remaining unbeaten 6A team in the whole state.
Yeah, it's been an incredible season. We were going through the stats earlier while we were doing prep for the game. Were you aware, Pistol, they had they had 7 defensive touchdowns this year, 1 for every game?
That's what I was guessing. I didn't look real close, but I know, like on Junction City, against Junction City in that win, they had 3, defensive / special teams touchdowns. That's just amazing. Teams, I think, are happy if they have that for a year.
Pretty incredible what that group has been able to do. Let's move on to tomorrow's games, Pistol, and let's get to that game I was mentioning a few moments ago. I was alluding to Highland Park is going to play Kansas City, Washington at Hummer Sports Park coming up tomorrow, and I know there's a lot of eyeballs that are going to be on that game. Huge opportunity for the Scots. Now, when I was talking about doing all sorts of planning and, well, if this scenario happens, what'll occur? What'll the brackets look like if this scenario occurs? I wasn't expecting Highland Park to be essentially gifted a win because one of their opponents had used an ineligible player, but that's exactly what happened to Lincoln Prep out of Kansas City. So Highland Park enters this week, Pistol, instead of 5-2 at 6-1, which puts them in a really nice position for seeding if they can knock off Kansas City, Washington tomorrow.
Which I do want to say, I don't think that's a done deal. I think that'll be a close game. I think Washington's a credible opponent. And so the Scots definitely got to take care of business to make sure that they don't give that 4-1 back, so to speak. Because if they can go 7-1, that puts them in an excellent position.
What would you say, Pistol, is the most important thing that Highland Park needs to accomplish in order to win games? Is it the offense staying on the field and stringing together drives, creating big plays for themselves? Is it limiting big plays for opposing offenses? What would you say is kind of that X factor for Highland Park as we approach the end of the season?
Well, I think a little of all those things. I mean, I think their defense has played pretty well. They have some great athletes. Ja'Cory Robinson's really stepped up a quarterback the last couple of games. They don't have the firepower they did last year with Trey Richardson, but I think the key for them is just taking control of games. I'm not sure they have the firepower to come from behind in some games, so they need to make sure that they take care of business right from the outset, which they weren't able to do, like in a loss to Atchison, a couple weeks ago, and really against Lincoln Prep, although that turned out in their favor.
We're talking to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. It's the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Make sure you check out all of his work covering all of our local teams over at TopSports.news. Let's get to a couple of other games involving 5A teams. This will be our Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week coming up tomorrow night here on 580 WIBW. Seaman looking to get back to 500 on the year to end the regular season. They take on Kansas City Piper. This is a big game for Seaman coming up here, Pistol, because they can really help themselves out seeding-wise. And depending on how other things break, may even have a chance at a Week 9 playoff home game if they can pick up a win.
Yeah, and you know, I like that Seaman team. They just have been kind of snake bit in close games. 3 losses by 7 or fewer points, 2 3-point losses, including last week's loss to a really good Baser Linwood program. So this is a huge game for them, and I'm picking them. I think they'll win that game, but they can't. Just like Highland Park in Washington, they can't take anything for granted.
Shawnee Heights, they will be on the road for their regular season finale as well. They'll make the trip up northeast. They will take on Leavenworth. Obviously, Heights coming off that big win a week ago. We were there. You were there for that one, too, Pistol. 62-12 over Topeka West. Shawnee Heights has ended the last 2 seasons after playoff games at 5-5. So I think for this senior-heavy team at Shawnee Heights to get a 6th win can mean a lot for them. Obviously, they're a darn good team, but I would imagine the mental part of the game would be a huge boost for them going into playoff time.
Yeah, definitely. People always talk about being at your best in, October. They have been. I mean, they've been really sometimes coming off. I think one of those years they started like 0-3 or something, and they have really played well. And I thought they played well last week. West got an early touchdown, and then Heights just took care of business and did what they should have done in that game and took control of it. But I like this Heights team. They got like 4 or 5 really good receivers, a good running back in Alan Bowman, a good quarterback in Tooley. And some great linemen. So I'm really interested to see who they draw, because they could draw like a rematch with a Lansing, which they beat by 1 point early in the season.
And the other old saying, Pistol, as we know, is that defense travels. And Shawnee Heights has a lot of offensive firepower. That defense is phenomenal and playing by far, I think, their best football of the year.
I agree. And last week, I think they got their pride hurt a little bit when Topeka West comes right out and runs down the field and scores. But after that, things were hard for the Chargers to get anything, because I think they probably the worst thing they could do was get the T-Birds' attention, and they did.
Down in Class 3A, a district champion, the Hayden Wildcats, they're 7-0, looking to go 8-0 coming up tomorrow night when they take on Hiawatha. Any significant storylines you're paying attention to for this Hayden team as they close out the regular season?
This will be a little crazy, maybe. I think their big deal is just not get anybody else hurt. When you're a 2A, 3A type program, any injury or 2 or 3 injuries can really change your outlook going forward. So I think they want to come out, get a lead, and then let Bill Arnold kind of turn it over some younger players. 1, to get them some experience, and 2, to keep people healthy. And I think that's the big key for them.
Back in 6A, or at least our local team is a 6A team, Topeka High, they're going on the road to take on Hayes tomorrow. Dan and I were talking in the office today about how excited we are for next football season when we have some changes to schedules. Obviously, teams that play league mates all year, that's going to stay the same, but some non-league games are going to look different. I don't think anyone is more excited for that than Topeka High. And coming off that tough loss to Junction City, that's a long road trip to a Hayes team that themselves had a big win a week ago. Man, the hits just keep coming for this Trojans program, Pistol.
Yeah, and they need to get the last 2 years. Their schedule, I'll just say it, has been unfair. Particularly with a bunch of young kids. They only have like 4 seniors playing a bunch. That was just unfair for some of the teams they had to take on. And I think once they get to next year, when we'll see that schedule here before too long, I think they'll be competitive in the non-league games, which will help them in the Centennial League, because they were just kind of beat down by the time they got to Centennial League play this year.
Last city team we should get to here, Pistol. Care Paravel has gone from, they're a nice story to, no, that's a really dang good football team. In all likelihood, if they can knock off Maranatha Christian coming up tomorrow night, they're going to host, in just their second year as Acacia program, in a very difficult district, they're going to end up hosting a playoff game come next week. Last week, they picked up a win, and I want to make sure I get this right. They took down Chase County last week out of Cottonwood Falls, a win over Madison, a win over Burlingame the 2 weeks before that. This is a really good Care Paravel team, and they're riding as much momentum into the postseason as anybody.
They might have been my biggest surprise of the year, not because I didn't think they'd be good, because I did think they'd be good, but I just didn't know what to expect out of that district because that district's so good. Last year I thought they were a good football team, but they took some district losses just because the district was so good. But after losing, they just, taking care of their business and are playing as good as anybody probably, around this area, other than maybe Washburn Rural and Hayden. I mean, they're really good. And what they want to do is they want to make their mark in 8-man this year, because then they go to the 11-man ranks next year.
All right, Pistol, a couple of other sports I want to make sure we touch on here as we wrap up this week's Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound with Rick Peterson of TopSports.news. Let's talk some city girls golf, some full county girls golf over the past week, because both Hayden and Silver Lake coming away with a couple of titles.
And not just coming away with titles, I mean, dominating wins. Silver Lake by 22 strokes in 3A, 1A. Hayden by 37 strokes in 4A. I mean, that's just amazing to win by those margins. And what they both did was in the first 18 holes, they just took control, and then both of them just played even better the second day.
Also wanted to touch on some city tennis players. We featured earlier this week here on 580 Sports Talk Lauren Sandstrom and Emily Sheets from Hayden, who are for the second year in a row the 4A girls doubles state champions. Let's take a look back at state tennis from this past week and some of the other standout performances.
Well, I think that you start definitely with Lauren Sandstrom and Emily Sheets. They are just, what they do, which I really think helps them, is they play the 6As and the 5As, a lot during the season, including, City and Centennial League. And then when they get to 4A, they just feel like that's their tournament to win. And the last 2 years they have, and the last 3 years they've had state medals as a doubles team. They're very good. Yeti, and how do you pronounce her last name?
I'm glad you asked, Pistol, because I was going to ask you how we pronounce Glutty's last name.
You know how I pronounce it? I pronounce it Yeti. I just call her Yeti because I'm not sure. If you were asking me, I'd probably say, spelling-wise, I'd say Glazenap, but I bet that's wrong. I mean, if she comes from Germany, and I don't know how they pronounce their words over there, but I know she's a great kid and a great player, and really played well to get second in Class 5A singles.
Rick Peterson covers our local teams, our local prep sports better than anyone, and does so for TopSports.news. Head to the website for all the best coverage of our local teams. Make sure you're following him on Twitter as well, at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, where are you headed to tomorrow night? And and tonight as well. Will you be headed to Hummer Sports Park?
And I haven't seen Hayden in a while, so tomorrow night I'll go see Hayden. I just want to kind of check in on them. I've seen everybody, or at least my staff has seen everybody. So now it's just get you ready for playoffs and some really great games.
Well, enjoy the games, Pistol. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
That is Rick Peterson from TopSports.news.
Hour number 3, 580 Sports Talk, coming to you on this Thursday. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dorzinski, along with Dan Lucero with you. We got still 2 more hours to go before we hand it off to Dan for a little Lewis Toyota Thursday night football. Washburn Rural, the number 1 ranked team in 6A. How about that?
Yep.
How about
The
that?
lone unbeaten.
We will.
Remember when we used to make Marco howl
Oh, yeah, the lone wolf.
for Lone Wolf?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. They are the lone unbeaten. In action tonight, 7 o'clock kickoff, 6:30 pregame coverage right here on 580 WIBW. Should be a fun one. Anytime you get to watch the Wild Bunch defense get to play, that should be a good one. So we got that tonight coming up at 7 o'clock, 6:30 pregame coverage. We'll talk with Mitch Holthus coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. But right now, we got to give away, and I told you like a couple different times, we got a family 4-pack. That's 4 tickets. So you and 3 other friends, or you can just give the tickets to somebody. I don't care. Maybe you don't want to go and you're like, hey, my buddy B-Rad is a big K-Stater. I'm going to just give him the tickets.
All you have to do is guess Jake's social security number.
Let's not do that.
In all likelihood,
Well, I
they
wasn't
wouldn't
gonna-
guess it.
Wasn't going to put the colors on the air guessing.
Oh, I was.
Let's not do that.
Fine. Guess
Let's
Dan's social security number.
Yes, there we go.
I don't have an
I don't
identity worth
appreciate that
stealing.
either.
so.
His social security number is 9.
Wow, what are you saying, Jake?
9.
I'm younger than you.
9. That's his social security number. 9.
Was that a thing? Like, did the first person who ever got social security
Is he 1?
were they
Zero
one?
zero 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 one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me ask you
Does that
this.
mean I was the person who was born? I don't know.
Let me ask you this question. When you were growing up, like when you were in high school, and your teachers,
We're really teasing people who want these tickets.
your teachers, to give you their grades, you went by your social security number?
No.
No.
No, I grew up with computers.
No, this goes to show you how different. So at least in God's country, for your test scores and like your grades, they'd like post it on a bulletin board, and they would have the last 4 digits of your social security number. That way, no one could know what your grade was
Until they saw you pointing like, 0024. Like,
Yeah,
oh, that's
yeah.
me.
No.
Following it with your finger.
Yeah, some people did that. But yeah, that's how we know. So it'd be like, last 4 digits, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 86.7.
Publicly posting grades.
Wow.
Maybe they
Yeah, we
did.
were into grade shaming, apparently, at good old Salina Central.
I don't
No, that never happened.
believe that ever
Yeah.
happened.
Lyons
Any-
Township High School did not do that.
Anywhere I went to school, I don't believe that was a thing.
Yeah, you could. They post the grades. Here are the grades right now after 6 weeks, and every one of the grades would be posted. You'd have anywhere from like a 98 to a 30.
If
You
it
probably-
was my school, it would have just been, that's Brendan over there. They wouldn't have needed it.
I
Guess
guarantee
my
you
number.
probably knew who got the 30. If you were in class with somebody who would get a 30, you knew who the
Yeah.
30 was.
Yeah, but anyway, we're
And
not.
then you could steal their identity because you would have the final 4 digits of their social security.
Should we pick a caller?
No, they need to answer a trivia question. It's
Okay.
not gonna be a hard one.
Okay. Who's starting at quarterback?
No, that's not it. I need you to, in order to get these 4 tickets. These are good tickets too. These are row 14.
They're good seats.
All
They're
right.
very good seats.
They're good seats. I need you to tell me, where did Avery Johnson go to high school? Don't say it.
I wasn't. I was going to give the phone number. Jeez. I think I'm a moron.
I saw
785-272-9429. First one to answer that question gets the tickets.
Yes. I saw Dan go, and I was like, wow, Dan, don't. Because he was typing something on the screen. I was like, oh, no, Dan, don't do that. Yeah. All you got to do, tell me where Avery Johnson went to high school. Where did he go to high school? I was going to ask how many touchdowns he scored on Saturday, but I wanted to get, these are good tickets. You're going to have to earn them.
Yeah.
You need to tell me where he went to. I'll give you a hint. He's not from Topeka.
every once in a while, you'll see an athlete at the high school level who's a really good player, but like they're just a really good high school player.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you see guys who are different. Like they just move differently, they throw it differently, they tackle differently. Kai Thomas was the most recent example of that for a city athlete. And when I got to see Avery Johnson play his last year of high school,
when he went and played against Topeka High,
he played against Topeka High
on a Saturday.
Yes, it was a Saturday morning game.
Yeah.
And the first throw was a bomb. I think it was a 70-yard touchdown, first play of the game. Sideline, just chucking it. And I look at Dan at the break and I said, oh, I get it. Like all of a sudden, I get it with Avery Johnson.
Well, that also too, but in state basketball.
Like, yeah, I saw him at state in 2 years ago.
His junior year.
He was the best athlete on the I don't know that he was the best basketball player, but he was the best athlete on the floor.
We do have a winner, by the way, so we can now say what high school it was.
It was
Mays
High. He's
Mays.
a Mays Eagle.
I wish they had a corn-themed name. I wish they were like the Corn Huskers or something else.
The Mays.
The Husks.
The Mays Huskers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you'd end up being like the Lions.
The Mays Colonels.
That's not even close to the same thing. We're not saying be the Mays.
Mays.
The Mays Corn.
Yeah, the Mays Corn.
No, it's funny that in Kansas you have the Lions, and in Colorado there's also a town called Lyons, and they are also the Lions.
Come on.
And Illinois. We were the Lions, Township Lions, but we were the Lions. I said that. I'm not kidding. I said that at a football game one time. It was. I think it was my freshman year.
You almost got thrown off the.
No. I'm standing behind, I guess, kids older than me because I didn't know who they were, and I leaned to my buddy and go, "Isn't it kind of dumb? We're the Lions. Like that's really repetitive." And some dude turns around, not joking at all, looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Go bleep yourself." I was like, damn.
Man, high school is different, man. It's different.
What?
But our winner,
I went to public school. That was pretty normal.
Yeah, shout out to Gary.
Shout out to
Here's
Gary.
our winner. He was first to dial and identify Mays High as where Avery Johnson went to school. So he's got the 4 tickets to Saturday's game. We appreciate all of you who listened and called. But much like the Highlander, when it comes to giving away tickets, there can be only one.
Here we are. Someone.
Is that a song?
Yeah. Born to be king. From the text line, they didn't like my question.
3 winking emojis.
Oh,
so,
I didn't see those.
yeah.
I got. Yeah. He went to Mays High School. Lame question. It's not hard. I'm not trying to, to.
No, we wanted someone to win.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be too hard.
By the way, speaking of, not really recruiting. Avery is already at K-State, but some major recruiting news potentially for Kansas State and KU and Oklahoma and Florida State. Michael Boganowski at Junction City. He is committing in 5 minutes, live from Junction City High School. I have a picture
at 4:20.
4:20.
Okay.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
No, I just said at 4:20.
4:20.
Get your mind out of the gutter. You thought my mind was in the gutter.
Yeah, he's got his own. He's got a nice little setup right in the gym.
What are you thinking?
OU.
It's got to be the K-State or OU.
I think it's going to be OU.
Yeah, I think the winds have been blowing towards Norman in the last couple of weeks.
That's a bummer.
That's going to sting in Manhattan.
Yeah.
100%. That is going to sting in Manhattan.
He is going to be a really good college football player. I am very confident in that. He is going to be a good player.
He outside linebacker?
Well, it sounds like they might play him at safety.
Yeah.
Or kind of like the hybrid. It's what Kanak is doing now. Kanak? Is that how you say it?
I think it's Kanak.
Kanak. Yeah. Jaron Kanak is playing a very similar role from at Oklahoma right now, another Kansas kid. Yeah, I think they could probably play him as a linebacker.
That's why I think he's going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Like if you would have told me Desmond Purnell was going to play outside linebacker when he was at Hayden, I would have said no.
No way.
But he's
been good at it.
Pretty good outside linebacker.
Really good at it.
So that's where I wonder, like, is he going to play more of a outside backer, hybrid, safety, hybrid, outside linebacker, kind of that type of thing. So, if he end up goes to Oklahoma, big get for Brent Venables and the Sooners because he's a heck of an athlete, no question. We're going to get to some Chiefs news, and we'll talk more with Michael Peterson tomorrow on the Chargers and their season. But I want to get to a little bit of the Chiefs and the Chargers and the games that they play.
That sounds like the subhead for a novel. the games that they play.
And I'm going to give you this. They only play close games. If the Chiefs win this game by more than a touchdown, that is going to be unusual. You ready for this? Here are the games, all right, that they've played in the last 7 games, all right? Chiefs won 30-27 last year. Chiefs won 27-24 last year. Chiefs won 34-28 in overtime. Remember the Kelsey walk-off when she caught it, stopped, and outran every slow Charger DB? Chiefs lost 30-24. The Chiefs lost, actually, back-to-back games to the Chargers, both at home. Lost 38-21, but that was in week 17 when Chad Henne played in the backups. So I eliminate that game.
I saw somebody make a pick for Sunday's game. I don't remember who, but their reasoning behind picking the Chargers was they've won 2 of the last 3 meetings at Arrowhead Stadium. I'm like, wasn't one of them a game where Chad Henne was the starting quarterback?
Correct.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah. Chiefs won 23-20. That was when Butker kicked the big, the 58-yarder in overtime. And then the Chiefs won. The last time that they won by more than a possession, they won 31-21. This is a game that no matter what the Chargers have, because do you remember a couple times last year, they were beat to hell. I mean, they were so beat up. Rashawn Slater wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
Whole bunch of guys were not going to play. Derwin James wasn't 100%. And the Chiefs won 27-24. Like, they only play close games. The Chargers have just the knowledge and the wherewithal to hang with the Chiefs.
They get up for these games.
They
too.
do. This is they put these games on a pedestal, and they do because and I think if I remember correctly, and I might go and look tomorrow. Every game after the Chiefs, they lose because it is just all in for this game against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Also, in my memory, all of these games are primetime games. Like, all of these games are either Thursday night or Sunday night or Monday night. Like, I don't remember them playing when the sun has been out. Like, maybe week 1, the Butker game, that was week 1. That was Herbert's debut that would have had to have been 2020. But yeah, other than that, like, I have trouble when I picture the Chargers and the Chiefs playing, the sun is not out.
I think that was a week 2 game.
Was it week 2?
I believe that was week 2 because Tyrod started the week before. It's really not that important, so I'm sorry.
Well, are you talking about the time when he got his lung poked?
Yeah, that
by
was week 2 of that
team
season.
doctor. Yeah, you're
And
right.
They beat the Bengals 16-13 the week prior.
It was the first Sunday game of the year for the Chiefs because they were the defending champs. They played Thursday night. Yeah.
And then they played last year, of course, week 2, Thursday night game to open up Amazon Prime. And then they played later on in the year and ended up winning 30-27.
They had the Monday night game that was supposed to be in Mexico that got moved.
No, that was the Rams game.
Oh,
they
right.
did play
due to the
Mexico.
fires. Yeah.
They did have Mexico.
Yeah, they did play them in Mexico. So they're going to play a close game. End of discussion. They will. Also, Travis Kelce is my big chief tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and tell you this right now. My big chief, Travis Kelce. Here's what Travis Kelce has done against the Chargers. And, Derwin James and his suplex. 6 receptions, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. 5 receptions, 51 yards. 10 receptions, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns. 7 receptions, 104 yards. He didn't play in the game because of the backups. 9 receptions, 90 yards, 1 touchdown. Travis Kelce eats against the Chargers because they have no good linebacker play, and Travis Kelce. He gets up for these games too. How much different will it be this year if the offense is not clicking and such? But right now, the Chargers, they're not a good team because of a lot of reasons. But the main one is on both sides of the ball, they make mistakes. They screw things up. They cannot play like the Chiefs have played a sound defensive game almost every game this year. They played the Chargers can't do that. They're going to screw up a coverage and let a big touchdown go. They're just going to screw up. That's why your record is what it is because you just can't. You always make mistakes. You're going to forget a coverage or do something wrong. That's what's going to happen with this Charger team. But it's still going to be close. If the Chiefs win this game by multiple scores, that to me says more about the Chiefs than it does the Chargers, because I think this is going to be a close game on Sunday.
I need to drop some knowledge on you guys because I literally just found this out. Pro Football Reference used to have a section. Oh, well, now here it is. It used to be easier to find. You can find the head-to-head records of every team against every other team in the league. And I wanted to go back and do some historical looking at what the Chiefs and Chargers have done. And then I came across a tab for blown leads. Do you know you can find any team's 50 biggest blown leads in franchise history on Pro Football Reference? I did. And 5 of the Chargers' biggest in franchise history have been against the Chiefs.
Yeah,
but only one of them in the Mahomes era. And that was Justin Herbert's first start.
The 23-20, because they got up big, and we were all like, what is happening? Our pets' heads are falling off.
Why did they puncture Tyrod Taylor's lung?
Yeah. What was it, 20-3 or 17-3 in that game?
It was an 11-point lead.
Yeah.
I think it was 20-9 then.
I remember that.
The math
Tyreek Hill caught that big touchdown behind KU great. Chris Harris. And then Butker kicked the big field goal. But
KU is great. I agree.
Kelsey's going to eat. But right now, the line is 5.5.
I would take the Chargers.
I'm going to take the Chargers.
Yeah, Chargers to cover feels...
Because they just play close games. It's just how they do things. Man, I'm telling you, this has been a unique situation. Not like the Broncos series. This is different. Coming up, we got What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk.
What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. 2 of us the rest of the way. Well, in fact, that's not even completely true. Dan's out of here in a few minutes. He's got some high school football to get ready for tonight. Washburn Rural versus Topeka West. But we first have to find our daily winner in What is Wrong with You, which, as always, you know, is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications. That saves you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal at Top City Metal Supply, right here in the capital city on Southwest Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay, and Forbes Field. Our current winner for the week, this is a story from yesterday, Dan, the wrong man waterboarding. You and Jake found a new weekly winner.
We did, from Plantation, Florida, where we had 3 guys kidnap somebody at gunpoint outside his apartment, drove him to a home, took him inside, tossed his cell phone, and then learned they had the wrong guy. They were looking for one of that guy's coworkers.
I can't have that.
They did not. That did not stop them from threatening him, putting a drill to his skin, pointing a gun at him, and dousing him with water in a simulated waterboarding before they finally decided that they would try and lure the man's coworker, the actual target of the kidnapping. And when they tried to do that, the kidnapping victim phoned in a bomb threat to get a rapid police response to the building that they were all at, and the suspects were arrested by law enforcement.
Not great. Not especially great. That's an unbelievable story. I will go first today after I missed yesterday's What Is Wrong With You. My story's gross. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is gnarly. We meet a funeral home worker in Nebraska. His job is to remove the passed away, deceased bodies from homes and take them back to, the morgue, the funeral home, whatever. This gentleman's name is Ryan Smith. He's 41 years old. And on a job, he has been accused of having an intimate encounter, there's no way to put this politely, with a sex doll in a deceased person's house. Investigators say the 41-year-old Smith and a colleague were dispatched last week to a home at the Rock Creek Apartments in Omaha to collect the body of an individual who had died there. According to an investigator, near the body on the bed was a very real, life-size sex doll. Police allege that Smith subsequently called the property manager and claimed that the local sheriff had asked him to remove the sex doll to collect swabs for biopsy. Smith's strange request was denied by the manager, who later returned to the apartment to discover that Smith was inside the unit, which had previously been locked with a deadbolt and chain. After Smith exited the home with his shirt untucked and his pants in, quote, disarray,
No!
The property manager called the police, who busted Smith on felony burglary charges. A post-arrest examination revealed all the police needed to know.
Thank you for only saying that.
There are other words in this story from our friends at thesmokinggun.com that I am not going to read because I know families listen. I know children listen. And frankly, whether you are a child or a family or just an individual, you don't want to hear these words.
I'm 37 years old. This story's not safe for me, man. I'm traumatized by these details. We're sparing you. Trust us. You'll thank us later if you ever encounter this story. You'll thank us later.
A deputy collected the doll, quote, so that I could have her processed for DNA. We don't need to humanize it, guys. We don't. Smith was fired from his job.
Speaking of unnecessary details.
Yeah, that should have gone up without saying.
Oh, terrible.
He's a pervert. Let's just be blunt. This man is a pervert.
Yeah.
Someone died in that house, man. Ew.
Very distracted by the doll.
I guess so.
Near the body.
Horrific. Just absolutely horrific.
Yeah, that's... Ugh.
Yeah, I told you it was gross. Okay?
Yeah, that's one of the more revolting stories I think we've ever done in the history of What Is Wrong With You.
I do want to make it clear that I did give the preview that it was a nasty one. All right, Dan, what do you have for today?
All right, we've got adults ruining things for kids. We go to Jolton, Tennessee, and we find a youth football team whose season has been canceled after a fight broke out at Saturday's game. The Greenbrier Bobcats were taking on the Jolton Vikings, and there was a fumble and a dog pile ensued. The story helpfully notes that a dog pile is when players jump onto each other to recover the ball.
Is it a Will Greenlee story?
No, this is Peyton Muse of WZTV.
Miss our old guy, Will.
Yeah, he was the best. Coaches rushed onto the field as well as a father. Coaches told him to leave, but witnesses claim he came back a short time later with a gun.
Oh, no.
That led to the parents calling 911.
Can't have that.
Caller said, "We need a cop. We have a gun at a park with a bunch of kids." In a video, a man in a brown jacket gets in a fight. The gun is never shown, but he keeps his hand in a bag. The president of the Middle Tennessee Junior Football League told WZTV the parent who brought the gun has been banned from all games. One of the coaches is under suspension, and the league is canceling the remainder of the games for the 12-year-old Greenbrier team.
12 years old.
So there are a lot more quotes and comments in this story. They've got like quotes from a child's clinical psychologist and quotes from the league itself. But those are the bare bones facts of the story, is that there was a football play that, I mean, the dog piles are not a nice place to be.
No.
And things get rough and tumble in there, even in 12-year-old football. It doesn't mean that you as a father need to go in and break up that fight. You leave that to the coaches, and you definitely don't need to bring the burner. You do not have to have the heat on you around a bunch of kids. Like, it's just appalling in so many ways. And congratulations, you've ruined the season for presumably your kid and for all the other kids in that town. They can't play football anymore this year because of you. Because you, like so many people, can't do any talking, can't do anything without your gun.
So I, as you know, am not a parent, but I have a piece of advice for parents out there who might think I should get involved. Now, being involved in your kids' lives,
good.
Awesome, phenomenal. Be involved in your kids' lives. Here's what you shouldn't be involved in: the officiating of your children's youth sporting events.
Unless you're actually like gonna do it, put on the stripes and go out and do it. Because by all means, do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a note in this story about an officiating shortage in the area. Gee, I wonder why that might be. If you got parents toting guns to their kids' games, I don't think I'd want to be a ref either.
Well, wasn't there that story this summer where the parent jumped out of the crowd and attacked an umpire?
Yeah.
Like, guys, not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. I hate this. I hate when adults ruin things for kids. It is the worst.
Just don't. Why did you need the gun, man? You don't.
No,
you don't.
Did not need it.
And then you ruin it for a bunch of 12-year-olds.
Yeah, whole town.
You ruin their football season.
All right. So we have this awful guy, and we have the pervert guy. Those are our two options today. The pervert guy and the awful gun-toting guy. Who we got? Look, I'm gonna be real with you.
Like, the pervert is worse, but I never want to think about that story again. I'm okay with giving him the win today, acknowledging that he is worse, but also acknowledging that I never want to think about it again, and maintaining the wrong man waterboarding as our winner for another day.
I will agree with that. I love the wrong man waterboarding story. That's a good one. Was that your story or
that was
Jake's
my story
yesterday? Yeah, that's a banger right there. I'm not gonna lie, that's a really good one. I'm with you. The pervert deserves the win today, but I don't ever want to think about him ever again.
Yeah.
And neither does his former employer, for that matter. That is our winner today, the wrong man waterboarding. He survives another day on What Is Wrong With You, which, of course, is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field, right here in the capital city. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, got to run down a bunch of student athletes at Big 12 Basketball Media Day, the Big 12 Men's Basketball Tip-Off yesterday. And we'll hear from the starting point guard for the Kansas Jayhawks. I got to talk to DeJuan Harris a little bit yesterday. We'll hear that coming up on the other side of this break right here on 580 Sports Talk. We're back on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Yesterday was a big day in Kansas City. It was Big 12 Men's Basketball Media Day, or the Men's Basketball Tip-Off at the T-Mobile Center. I've been calling it the Sprint Center all day and all yesterday, too. I keep forgetting that they have a new corporate owner. But it means it's the same company. It doesn't matter.
It's only been the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Jar.
They're not paying me. T-Mobile's not paying me.
This is true.
I don't even have T-Mobile as my phone service anymore, so I really don't care anymore.
We don't exactly go out of our way to call it GEHA Field, so like,
No.
I understand.
No, that is very true. But we got to run down a bunch of players from KU and K-State, the coaches as well, and we'll give a little sneak peek into some of the conversations with one of those players, maybe the best point guard, one of the best point guards in the country. He's a first-team All-Big 12 preseason player, DeJuan Harris. Got to speak with him a little bit yesterday, got some thoughts on some of his new teammates and some of his expectations for this season. So, without further ado, let's hear from DeJuan Harris, starting point guard for the Kansas Jayhawks.
Well, KJ to Hunter might be that might be more too though, just based off the plays that we run, or KJ making the play too. So it just depends because we got a lot of playmakers on our team. Kev can pass the ball, our big guy can pass the ball. So it's gonna be fun playing with everybody because we can share the ball.
When I want to be aggressive. And when I ask Hunter, just a couple quick questions. Who leads the team in scoring?
It got to be the big fella. That's why we got him.
I know a lot of guys can score, but overall, you think you'll get that?
Oh yeah, he got to. Coach loves playing with big men too. That we can just throw it up and give an angle too. So
no doubt, no question about it. Best 3-point shooter on the team is. No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. I got to give it to Michael Jankovic. Got to give it.
Okay.
Got to.
Okay. Of the guys that'll play the most significant amount of minutes, comes next.
I'll say me. You got to say me, dude.
Okay. You got a breakaway. You got 4 seconds left. Bring in the house down. Who's the best guy that's hit dunk, electric wise?
Oh, y'all already know that. KJ.
Okay.
He might break the rim.
In conference play, the most hostile environment, the one place that you love to go to no matter what.
It's hard because he literally
conference.
does a little bit of
that's
everything.
hard because every away game that we go to is fun besides like Oklahoma.
Right.
I can say either Texas or Baylor because I haven't won there yet.
So no Manhattan.
It's really hard to pigeonhole him.
No.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it's fun playing there because it's our rival.
You haven't won in Texas or Baylor.
No.
Is that the goal this year?
Yes, that's the goal this year. Yes, sir.
All right, DeJuan, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
DeJuan, a lot of people have talked about, throwing labs to Hunter and KJ and everything, and D-Mac especially a couple years ago.
Preseason Big
Which
12
guy,
player of the
though,
year,
would the
preseason
fans
newcomer of the year,
be
you kind of relish those
surprised to know
expectations?
has the most
something you're not
bounce
really thinking
in the
about.
locker room?
I mean,
in the locker room,
whoever says they
our
don't
walk
think
on
that
Wilder
is to you,
Evers.
they just
I
want to
don't know.
keep
I think I said his last name right, but
but
Wilder.
For me, it's like
Wilder. He's actually athletic, one of the most athletic players on our team.
as long as
He's been getting better
what
every
Coach
year
is
too.
saying
So
is
since he's been here,
as long as I'm playing
Awesome.
hard,
Thank you.
yeah, I got you.
Things should go
While
on
you're talking
pace.
about
I don't
the
have
games
to
you're
force
most
a
looking
lot of
forward
things
to,
nowadays.
going to
I have the
Texas
best
and winning,
point
going to
guard in the
Baylor and winning
country.
one-on-one against someone
Coach
else in the
who
Big 12.
has
What's
played-
that one
I don't
matchup
even
you're
know how
looking
many
forward to the
people
most this year?
This
He's in the
year?
Hall of Fame. He knows how to get the ball. I don't have to really.
Gotta
force
say
anything,
Houston.
so
Yeah.
I'm not really
because I
worried
ain't
about
played
the
Houston
expectations
ever,
because,
and they're always the
I don't
top
have to do
5,
as
top
much
10
as
team
I've
in
had
the country. They always the best team in the
I can
country.
walk around
So
and
I know when we play
mess
them
around
there,
with
and
sports
we play them at home
points.
too, I
As
think
long
too.
as
So
I'm
yeah,
playing hard
it's
to
gonna
make
be
intensity,
a great matchup. It's gonna be fun, competitive on
One
the
of the-
defense end
You are
because they
one
play
of the
great
face
defense
something
too every
obviously
year.
because
So
of college
it's gonna be a
basketball.
grind
How
out
do you
game.
kind
I
of
think
manage
I know it
being
is
a leader,
actually.
but also
Talent-wise for
learning
them, I mean, they bring back
about the
Jamal
Kansas
Shad. He's
culture
one of the best players in
Yeah,
the
I think,
conference. Just coming in immediately this year. They got a bunch of new guys too. Who else from the newcomers? I don't know how much you guys have scouted them so far, but BYU, UCF, Cincinnati. What other
I'm a
guys from
senior.
those groups
I
stand
feel
out to
so
you?
old. Older, but
Or does anything about those?
If you want to be honest, I haven't been.
Okay.
I ain't been thinking about that none of that for real. I mean, of course you got to say talk about Houston because
Right.
they right there. But yeah, but that's probably to be the only team because LJ Crowder, that was a big move. I didn't know he was gonna go there, but that's crazy. But they're the best for a reason too, though. So
Do you pay attention to any of the realignment stuff? Like, does that mean anything to you, or is it pretty much whoever's on the schedule will still play him? Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, basically, because I know that every game's gonna be hard for us, and I know I gotta bring it. So I just take one game at a time and try to get better every day too. So yeah, I just try to basically.
Yeah,
I know you've been asked this by
like,
probably a couple
it's
of
just
people
different,
already today, but working with
than what I'm
Hunter
used
here,
to,
what
but
has it
I
been
like
like?
it.
You
It's
know,
great,
Coach called him the most
just life
best
experience
center
for me.
maybe that he's ever worked with
the people are
offensively.
amazing.
What have you noticed
So
about his game
nice.
right away? You guys working out together?
It's a great spot to be.
Really, how good of a
Still trying to
passer
learn
he is.
some more food spots.
I didn't know when I first met him, I didn't know that he was a good passer.
I'm trying to find all the little holes
for a
in the
big
wall,
man.
still exploring
But
that
he
stuff,
is,
but,
you know, he can make plays
you know,
too for us. But he has a soft touch.
A week ago,
The softest touch I've
got
seen
that.
as a big.
The wings were pretty good.
I see why he can do everything. Shoot the mid-range, shoot the three, shoot the floater. So, yeah.
When you've got a guy too like Nick coming in who's such a good shooter, I mean, he's played so much college basketball in his career. He's one of the best shooters in the country. You got to play with Grady last year, who's obviously a great shooter too. How much easier does that make your job being a guy like Huggins too to have that threat always on the outside?
It got to because, you know, teams gonna try to play off me a little bit, play off Kev a little bit, and play off KJ to make us make shots. So with that, it's gonna space the court out with him. People gonna make sure he doesn't get a touch or whatever. So that just creates more driving lanes for us too, though. But it's just really, you know, he's a great shooter, so he's gonna knock him down. So if he's getting face guarded, it just means that the next person who's got to make a play.
All right, speaking of you making shots, I've got to ask, how much time do you spend working on the floater? Like
the floater,
week to week, day to day. Like how much time do you spend on that? Because there aren't a lot of guys who have that kind of form and touch.
I've been shooting a floater since I started playing basketball. So that's been my go-to shot anyways. But I really haven't been working on it that much for real. I really just started shooting my floaters literally this week. For some reason, I haven't been shooting them that much. But because usually I make a play down the lane, I'll pass it down. Coach, one of my coaches be like, "Shoot your floater." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll be right there." So yeah, I just really just started getting back to my floater, and I'm glad you brought that up, so I can keep that in my mind. So.
I was thinking about this earlier when we heard from Kelvin Sampson, Houston's coach. He was talking about how they've got some smaller guards on their team. And he says small guards have always been small. And they know how to play, against some of the taller guys. And you being one of the smaller guys in the KU roster, what are some of the ways you think that actually helps you out? Whether you're going downhill, you're working on the perimeter. How do you think that helps you have that height difference?
Just knowing the game, the IQ on the defensive end and offensive end. You just gotta have like a real high IQ, and I feel like that's what I have. And I watched a lot of basketball throughout my years, and I know a lot of moves that a lot of college basketball players will make, and it's not that hard to guard, to be honest. So you just gotta. Then we watch film too, so we know what they're capable of doing. If you can't shoot, then obviously I'm not gonna pressure you or anything. But it's just a lot to it. Film, basically scouting report. Yeah, scouting report.
All right, last thing off the court. Who's the roommate this year?
I have the same roommates, Charlie and Dylan.
All right, tell us something about each of them that we don't know.
Who think they have a chance to compete with us on a nightly basis?
Well, I'm older than them, so I don't really hang out with them that much. I'll be in my own lane. But when I do be with them, they're usually watching football, watching movies in the living room. They really just pretty chill. They don't really be doing anything, though. They just be chilling.
Do you like being one of the older guys on the team now?
Oh, yeah. I can do whatever I want.
Did you have any questions?
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That is DeJuan Harris, starting point guard for the Kansas Jayhawks, speaking at Media Day yesterday, Big 12 basketball Media Day yesterday. Would like to make sure it is clear for everyone, because I know we just had some folks on the text line who said, wow, there's a lot of extra sound that is playing over this interview. We did not get actual individual time with any players yesterday. So I'm fully aware that we had some bleed over. You heard Hunter Dickinson in the background along with some other reporters as well. So our apologies for the quality of the audio not being in tip-top shape. We did the best we could with the situation we had. I could get into all sorts of complaints, but nobody usually likes to hear the reporter talk about things that bother them. So I will just let you know, unfortunately, we could not get better audio for you, but we did the best with what we could and played the most listenable 2 parts from our conversation with DeJuan Harris. Again, sorry for the iffy audio, we can put it that way, but hopefully anything else we get next week. KU's got another media availability. We'll hear from K-State players more as well going forward as we approach the season as well. We'll get some much clearer stuff for you. So our apologies. Hope you're able to make out most of what Harris had to say yesterday at Media Day, and we appreciate you for hanging with us through that. With that, we've got to get to another commercial break. We've got more 580 Sports Talk coming up, including in the 5 o'clock hour, a busy day of headlines. We'll let you know where Michael Boganowski is going, by the way. We teased that earlier on in the hour. Plus, Mitch Holthus is coming up. We'll get to all that and much more coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. Finishing up this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, I'm Brendan Dworzynski. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Dan Lucero on his way to Hummer Sports Park for Lewis Toyota Thursday night high school football here on 580 WIBW tonight. It'll be the Washburn Rural Junior Blues taking on the Topeka West Chargers, an old Centennial League matchup, city versus city, a non-league game these days. Pre-game coverage begins at 6:40 tonight. Keep that down, 6:40 tonight. Pre-game start time from Hummer Sports Park. 7 o'clock kickoff between the Chargers and the Junior Blues. Dan Lucero, Greg Akagi will be on the call of that one. Yours truly will be updating things from the sideline as well. The final Thursday of the high school football regular season. The final Friday, of course, coming up tomorrow. We'll have a great one for you as Seaman takes on Kansas City Piper with some stakes for both teams on the line. That'll be coming up tomorrow, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock kick right here on 580 WIBW for the Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week. Meanwhile, some big news, and we'll get to this as an early little teaser for you for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. But just about half an hour ago, standout linebacker Michael Boganowski from Junction City made his college choice, the number one player in the state of Kansas, and he elected to commit to Oklahoma. Yes, the Oklahoma Sooners. He is the newest player added to Brent Venables' defense going forward. Some quotes from, and I had them up here a moment ago. Now they're gone. Now we've got them back. From Michael Boganowski about why he decided to commit to Venables in Oklahoma. Said, quote, "I'd say the culture, the coaching staff, just the feeling of being in Norman." He also added that one of the reasons was why he's excited to go, and another reason why he wanted to go to OU. Just seeing how they're doing this year, seeing how they started this year, knowing I'll be coming into that next year. And then as for Venables, it's the passion he has. He brings that to everything, whether it's talking or coaching. When he talks, you can hear the passion in his voice. You can see the passion he has for football and the energy. And he says that I know I'll be used in a lot of different ways, and that stood out to me. And as we were talking about a little bit earlier when we were first teasing this at the top of this hour, it sounds from the folks who are in the know about this. You think about our pal Michael Swain over at fog.net, Ryan Wallace, who works for Tim Fitzgerald over at gopowercat.com. Sounds like a lot of people who have broken down where Boganowski was looking, what his college prospects might be, could really do a number of things. It could be that jack safety, the weak side safety. Every team's got a different name for it now. It's one of the defensive backs in the 4-2-5 backfield, the hybrid linebacker role, if you will. Maybe it's a more traditional linebacker look, depending on if he bulks up or not. Whatever it ends up being, I will tell you right now, because I've been lucky enough to get to see Michael Boganowski play over the last couple of years, playing our teams from here in the city. He is a stud. And I genuinely think it is nothing in recruiting is a sure bet, but I would be shocked if he is not a very good player for Oklahoma. And two of his other finalists, well, one of them was Florida State. I was shocked they were even in the mix. But the other two finalists were KU and K-State. On the KU front, this one's pretty easy. It became clear within the last couple of weeks, if you follow the recruiting stuff, if you're on the message boards, if you follow the 24/7 insiders or your whatever preferred website you have, you probably saw that KU was trending toward not ending up landing Boganowski. Did everything they could. I know our Michael Swain, our friend, he's not ours, our friend Michael Swain has reported that hey, KU pulled out all the stops to get him. Just didn't work out. KU still not quite recruiting that level of player as consistently as these other programs. It happens. Good to be in the mix. For K-State, I know there are some Cats fans that are not thrilled about where K-State recruiting is at the moment for next year. It was always going to be a small class. That is what a lot of people, again, in the know, have said about this K-State recruiting class. And as opposed to the total cumulative score, if you're looking at Rivals or 24/7 or, God forbid, ESPN or On3 or one of these other places that does these recruiting rankings, for K-State, it's going to be more about the quality of the player than the quantity of the player. And that's one of the flaws with the whole recruiting service system ecosystem, is that sometimes quantity gets way too much of a boost over quality of the players. I would not be overly worried about this if I was a K-State fan. I mean, it's tough to lose a player who's right in your backyard. I understand that, especially one who I think is going to be a really good player. If he had ended up at K-State, I think he'd be a dang good player. If he had ended up at KU or Florida State or one of the other many schools in the process that made an offer to him, I think he would have ended up being a really good player there. But sometimes it's about connection. And he had given a quote earlier this year about, hey, look, I I'm just trying to find the place that feels right. Sounds like it was Oklahoma, and the best of luck to him. And he'll get to play in his home state a couple of times every year in his college career. And Brent Venables has it cooking there. I went into this year very skeptical of Oklahoma. You've heard me say how many times that I'm just not a big fan of Dylan Gabriel's game. I don't love this Oklahoma roster. Well, they keep winning. And they won their most important game of the year against Texas a couple weeks ago. And they've got a favorable schedule the rest of the way. They're in the driver's seat to win the Big 12 in their final year in the league. Venables knows what he's doing. He knows how to recruit. He knows how to recruit Kansas. I think that's important to note as well. And to keep adding players like this, just good, solid players at everything they do, they're going to keep that train rolling. And if you're a Big 12 fan, well, you're probably happy that they're going to be doing that in the SEC starting next season. That'll do it for the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We still have a full hour left to go on the show today. That includes a deep dive into today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got a bunch of them to get to, including one from college football that we talked about a little bit earlier on in the show that just makes the NCAA look as petty as possible. We'll preview Thursday Night Football, and we'll talk to the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, coming up next hour. Don't forget, we'll get to your texts. 785-272-9429 is the text line number, and your comments on our YouTube channel. It's called 580 Sports Talk, just like the show. We'll get to all that and more in the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, it is the final hour of 580 Sports Talk on a Thursday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dworzinski flying solo for this final hour of the show. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you've missed any of the show up until this point, well, then head on over to our website, 580wibw.com. Right in the center of the homepage, there is a tab for podcasts. What you're going to do is you're going to just put your cursor right over that. Then a little menu will pop up. You'll click on 580 Sports Talk, and boom, there you go. The audio broken down hour by hour of every single hour of 580 Sports Talk today and every day that we're on the air. The other way you can go back and check out any of the show that you may have missed today is to head to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com. Everybody's been to YouTube at least once, right? Almost everybody. I won't say everyone. I don't want to point with too broad of a brush. But youtube.com, you know how to get there. Search for 580 Sports Talk in the search bar. We will be the first result. There might be an ad there, but other than the ads, we will be the first result. Open up our channel. Make sure you subscribe to us. That way you see all of our stuff when it goes live. That'll include coming up on Saturday. Dan is going to K-State TCU, so he'll have a recap and a post-game video from that game in Manhattan. And that's how you can go find our entire back catalog of shows if you want to go back and watch an old episode of 580 Sports Talk. Or you can hop into today's live stream, watch along. Hello, everyone who's watching along. You can rewind the show in case you missed something from earlier and just hang out with us in the comment section as well. All that can be found on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Our Athlete of the Week interview from yesterday as well with the 4A State Girls Tennis Doubles Champions, Lauren Sandstrom and Emily Sheets. That is also up at our YouTube channel right now if you want to watch the video version of our interview with our Lewis Toyota High School Athletes of the Week. Speaking of our friends from Lewis Toyota, coming up tonight, 6:40 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff. We've got special edition Lewis Toyota Thursday night high school football here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. The regular season finale for the number one team in Class 6A. That's the Washburn Rural Junior Blues against the Topeka West Chargers. City versus city matchup. Former league mates, now a non-league game. Again, 6:40 kickoff. 6:40 pregame. 7 o'clock kickoff. There we go. We're all squared away now. Dan Lucero, Greg Akagi, yours truly on the call. That one from Hummer Sports Park coming up tonight right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. As I said before we got to the top of the hour commercial and news break, if you want to chime in about anything we're talking about on the show today, hit us up on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And you can also hop into the comment section on YouTube. As I mentioned, 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. Before we get to today's headlines and also a preview of Thursday Night Football and the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, a little bit later on this hour, I wanted to address something here real quick from the text line from the 402 regarding Michael Boganowski, the Junction City product, committing to Oklahoma. Our texter says Oklahoma also went to the grocery store, so to speak, and they decided, yay, let's buy Boganowski. So the first thing is I still feel a little bit uncomfortable using the phrase like buying a player. I just am personally uncomfortable with saying it like that, phrasing it. I understand the point you're trying to make. I will also say this. That's the game at this point, man. That's what it is. And I know that not everybody likes it. I know there are stragglers. Hell, maybe it's more people than I even am giving it credit for who say, no, I don't like that the name, image, and likeness rights and the money that is flowing to the players. I don't like how prevalent that is. I don't like that is changing things so much. And I understand. And you are entitled to that opinion. I don't feel super stressed about it because my opinion is this was already happening. This has always been happening. The concept of bagmen, we've all heard about that, right? You know, the guys, especially in the SEC, maybe the Big Ten a little bit too, Texas, Oklahoma, the old Southwest Conference. We know this was a thing, you know, making $100 handshakes or leaving money in the McDonald's bag, passing it back and forth. This has been college football and college sports forever. It just always has been this way. I'm not saying that's necessarily right, but I am saying to me, it is a positive that this is now something that is above board. It is coming from more verifiable sources. It is more well-regulated. So you can say, hey, we understand these teams have these collectives and whatever. And if you don't like that, again, more power to you. I understand there's some frustration with it. I would just say, hey, this has always been college football. And I don't think there's any change here. And frankly, I think a lot of programs wish they could say, hey, we've got a little bit more cash that we can shell out. We would love to have more money that our collective can have available for NIL opportunities for prospective athletes or our current athletes. I know I can give you an example of this. My wife's alma mater, I talk about them all the time, Washington State. They are very active in asking, hey, alumni, fans, wouldn't it be great if you contributed to our NIL fund and collective so that we can maybe entice some players to stay or for other reasons, the other things that come with NIL. So I think every team would love to have that available to them. Some programs just have a better strategy right now. And it also comes down to this. Let's be frank, because I know there's a lot of cynicism about this right now that, you can just buy players, you can just pay players. Sometimes it's just a better fit, really. And for some guys, it is all about the NIL money. And I want to go where I can make the most money. And again, more power to you if that's you, because you only get so much time in life, especially if you're not, an NFL caliber player or an NBA caliber player, whatever sport you're talking about. There's only so many opportunities to make big bucks. And if you have a chance to do it, go do it. I'm not going to tell you, no, you can't do that. But for some people, it's just about the fit. It is just about, where do I like it better? Where is more like home to me? What is the better fit for me? And as I said, as we were talking about this story, Michael Boganowski said, hey, I'm looking for somewhere that feels like home. I'm looking for somewhere that fits. He had given those quotes to 24/7 Sports earlier this season. And if that's Oklahoma, hey, that's a dang good program. That is a blue blood college football program. No matter how much they've annoyed Big 12 fans in recent years, that's a hell of a program. And I think he's going to be a sensational player for them, whatever reason. And frankly, it ain't my business why he or any other recruit picks a school. If you're a fan of that program, you feel great. If you wish you had gotten him, well, it probably feels more like, there's something afoot. I get it. I understand that. We do have a question here from the text line. And we have two things in from the text line, actually. We'll get to full headlines here in a moment. A text from the 785 says, I couldn't quite listen to the interview with DeJuan Harris because the audio is kind of messed up. As I mentioned when we aired that, my apologies for not the cleanest audio, just a little inside baseball. Sometimes you get to these media scrums. If you're on Twitter, maybe you saw the KU or K-State accounts tweeting out pictures of how busy it was, how many people were there. They also changed the format of Media Day this year. I know I'm getting into stuff that the general public doesn't really care about all that much, so I apologize for that as well. But we didn't get a ton of true individual one-on-one time with the players. We did the best we could, got as much audio as we could with some guys. It was a little more difficult than it's been in the past, so I apologize for the muddy audio if you weren't able to hear in full what we talked about with DeJuan Harris a little bit ago. I do want to transition that, though, into another text here from the 785 that asks me specifically, thank you, what was your biggest surprise or biggest takeaway from Big 12 Media Day? I'll give you two things. I'll give you a K-State one, and I'll give you a KU one here. The K-State one, and I'll start there because Jerome Tang was the first coach that spoke yesterday. And it was an unbelievable bar. And I will give Jerome Tang 100% credit for this. When he speaks, you listen. Because either it is engaging to you and he is drawing you in with his energy, with his passion, with the way he talks about his program and the people in and around his program, or he says something that makes you go, damn, wow, what a line. And that's what I took away from his press conference at the start of the day, because he was asked about how did the Elite Eight run help you on the recruiting trail? How can you take that momentum and use it to further build this K-State program? And he made a comment, and you probably heard it if you were listening yesterday when Jake and Dan aired the audio from that press conference. And he said, we recruited 75 guys when I got here. When we first got here, we recruited 75 guys. And I think he misspoke on the math, but 64 of them said no. We got 11 scholarship guys on the team. We recruited 75. And then during the tournament or after the tournament, I heard a bunch of congratulatory text messages or guys who said, I messed up. I should have followed you. And he said, you can either send me a congratulatory text or you can come be a part of this with me. And that's a bar, man. That's an awesome line. And I think that's 100% true. That is what K-State should have been hoping for this entire time with the Jerome Tang era. Like, hey, you might have seen the K-State basketball from the 3 prior years, the latter years of Bruce Weber. You might know that. You might not have known my name because I was a longtime assistant. Now you know, though. Now it's developing. Now you know about this program. And look at the kind of talent that K-State was able to bring in just through the portal. Not even talking about the freshman class. Will McNair from Mississippi State, nice player. Quez Glover, that's someone the K-State players talked about yesterday, and they said, people aren't talking about him. He's the fastest player on the team. He's going to surprise some people. Arthur Kaluma, top 20 transfer in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. And Tyler Perry, who I think is going to be the centerpiece of this K-State team this year. He might not be the top scorer. That might end up being Kaluma or Tomlin. Tyler Perry is going to be a star for Kansas State. So I think what Tang was talking about there, and again, you might have heard it yesterday listening to that press conference, I think he's spot on. And I think we have already seen that attitude and that positivity from a year ago start to turn into something good for this K-State program. As for KU, here's the amazing thing, and I'll shout out, let me give the credit to Mike Vernon here. If you're on Twitter and you're a KU or K-State fan, you've seen the name Mike Vernon, and Mike likes to agitate people, and I know K-State fans especially. He likes to agitate on social media, but he had a report this past week, yet another issue of it come out today, where he has been interviewing folks who are involved with the NCAA and the IARP infractions cases, and has been essentially trying to pull back the curtain on that situation. And he had a note in his story last week that Bill Self in 2022, we're talking January of 2022, went to the NCAA and the IARP and said, if it means we can get this process over with and put it in the past, I will sit out the 2022 NCAA tournament. I will sit it out. And the NCAA told him no, and then they obviously had the embarrassing moment where Mark Emmert, former president of the NCAA, had to give Bill Self the championship trophy at the Final Four down in New Orleans. Bill Self confirmed that yesterday at his availability, his media scrum after his press conference. He said, well, I can't talk directly about that, but I know it was reported, and yeah, it's accurate. That's astounding. That is how much this case was impacting this KU program. And I'm trying to understand things from every side, because if you're a KU fan, you say, oh my God, I can't believe that it was weighing that heavily on him. Or I can't believe we almost got to that point in a year where we won a national title. And if you're a fan of another program or you just don't like KU, you might be saying, well, good, they should have made him sit out for the tournament. Or I hate that this happened. I understand. I know there's a lot of different perspectives on this. But Self made a few other comments about how now it's time to go for the throat. And while KU has had continued success, even with this dark cloud hanging over them, they've had negative recruiting against them for half a decade plus at this point. And they have missed out on the biggest of the big recruits because of all of this. And now they are ready to go pedal to the metal. And they are, and I'm talking about Bill Self and what he had to say here, ready to go full throttle and to get back into the mix of getting top 5 and top 10 recruits, not just top 20 and top 30 recruits. Now, I thought it was interesting, and you know where my allegiances lie. I don't think that's surprising that I would be interested by that, but I did think that approach was interesting. And him talking about how this is the first time in years KU's been able to go into a season with a truly clear mind. I thought it was really fascinating stuff from Bill Self. And again, maybe that just makes you more angry hearing stuff like that if you're a Self-hater or a KU hater. And I get it. I understand we all have different ways we read a situation, but those are the two things that I think stood out the most to me. One other question as we recap Media Day, and I promise we'll get to a couple big headlines here in just a moment. We've got another question here from the 785. Outside of Houston, what newcomer school's coach were you most impressed with? By the way, Kelvin Sampson, Houston coach, his press conference was a trip. It really was yesterday. The one I was most impressed with, I would say I really enjoyed listening to Grant McCasland as well as Wes Miller at Texas Tech and at Cincinnati, respectively. Cincinnati's going to have some issues this year. Obviously, a newcomer coming into the league. Incredible basketball heritage at Cincinnati. They're going to have some roster issues. 2 players got denied second-time transfer waivers, even though they thought they were going to get those cleared. So they're going to be in some trouble. But I really liked Wes Miller, the way he was speaking. I thought he was a straight shooter. I think he's a good coach. That Cincinnati team has won a lot in the regular season, even if they haven't had a lot of postseason success recently. So I do think that's going to be a team that eventually becomes one of the better programs in the Big 12. I liked listening to him speak. And I was really impressed as well by Grant McCasland. I had never heard him speak more than a post-game interview during last year's NIT when he was at North Texas. But hearing him talk about the impact, one, that Scott Drew and Jerome Tang had on him. He worked with the two of them at Baylor for so long. The way they've impacted him as a coach, as a man, as a father, as a parent, just as a husband, all that stuff. I really like that. And as much as I rag on Scott Drew, and I will stand firm that a lot of it is deserved, it is clear that he had a lot of high character guys on his staff. Jerome Tang, obviously, and I think Grant McCasland as well. And I was really interested in hearing him talk about the fact that, hey, look, just because we played the slowest tempo of any team in college basketball last year at North Texas doesn't mean that's exactly what we're going to be when we get to Texas Tech. And I think You want an example of a guy who has changed in that regard over time? When Bill Self was at Illinois, they weren't exactly trying to play 400 possessions a game basketball. Those were some not super pretty all the time kinds of teams. And obviously the KU teams he's coached have been a lot different in that regard. So I just thought that was interesting. I like hearing about the process coaches have and their ideals and their goals and their vision for things. So I think those are the two that really stood out. I know I picked 50% of the, or no, if we're only picking 3 coaches because we took Kelvin Sampson out, I picked 2 of the 3. But I was really interested in the 2 of them. Nothing against Johnny Dawkins at UCF, but the other 2 I thought were much more interesting. I appreciate the comments and appreciate getting to talk to you guys a little bit about Media Day yesterday. We do have some 580 Sports Talk headlines we need to get to for today before we hear from Mitch Holthus. Let's jump right into some Chiefs news. In fact, the Chiefs injury report for today, same as yesterday. And that's great news for the Chiefs heading into a big game with the Chargers on Sunday. Only one player not participating in practice so far this week. That's Justin Watson. Everybody else, full go in practice. A number of guys are listed on the participation report, but all full, so it doesn't really matter. Full participants, I should say. The 2 most significant ones, Charles Omenihu listed because he's returning from suspension, but he's full participant, no hang-ups with any injuries. He's good to go. And Mecole Hardman, not listed at all. He was good to go as he acclimates himself back in. I do want to get to a quote real quick. This is from Dave Tobe, the Chiefs special teams coordinator, talking earlier today about what Hardman's role could look like on special teams with a little nugget about the offense as well. So let's hear what Dave Tobe had to say about Mecole Hardman earlier this afternoon. So that is Dave Tobe, special teams coordinator for the Chiefs. I know that was a little bit quiet there, but essentially it was, is Mecole Hardman going to play? Is he going to be returning kicks on special teams? And what happens then with Montreal Washington, who was waived today? But again, the expectation is that he will make it back to the practice squad and can be elevated if the Chiefs end up needing him on Sunday against the Chargers. You've heard my gripes about Mecole Hardman. I know I've made that very clear, and I don't mean to take it out personally on the guy. I just don't love his profile as an NFL player. But special teams wise, if the Chiefs need him there, well, he can probably jump in right away there. And offensively, the wide receivers have struggled enough that the Chiefs said, hey, we need to go back out and get this guy that we intentionally did not re-sign in the offseason. So clearly there's still something there that the Chiefs are interested in with him. And we will get to more on Mecole Hardman coming up in just about 10 minutes or so when we talk to the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, here on 580 Sports Talk. But a great injury report for the Chiefs. For the Chargers, not super great so far. Joey Bosa, limited in practice. I'm just going to go right down the list for you. I think these are actually in alphabetical order even. So Joey Bosa, limited in practice today. Limited 2 days in a row with a toe injury, in fact. Safety Alohi Gilman, this is an improvement for the Chargers. He missed practice yesterday, was back today in a limited capacity. He's got a heel injury. Limited again for Sebastian Joseph Day, one of their most steady defensive linemen. Not a star player, but a steady player on the inside. 2 reserve players on their defense. Defensive back Deion Leonard did not participate due to a hamstring. Same injury for Amen Ogbongbemiga. Did not participate after being limited yesterday. So that's actually a downgrade for Ogbongbemiga earlier on today. Keenan Allen also was a DNP today. That was just due to rest. However, limited participation for Derwin James. Would imagine that was also a rest day for him. Not listed as rest, listed as an ankle. But after he participated yesterday, you would hope for his sake that it's just a rest kind of day, a take it easy sort of day. But then again, it's Derwin James, and he has been banged up a preposterous amount during his career. with the Chargers. Next up for our 580 Sports Talk headlines today, let's get to a real quick MLB playoff roundup here. We may have a series that is developing in the American League. We actually have a game going on right now in the National League. Great job, Brendan. Really great planning to go from one to the other back and forth like that. But we are in the top of the 6th inning, and the Philadelphia Phillies don't have any runs. They're not losing because the Diamondbacks also have not scored, but the Phillies trying to get back to the World Series for the 2nd straight year. They are currently scoreless with the Diamondbacks top of the 6th, low-scoring game there. They just have been mashing this entire series. And if they win today, I know what has happened before. We all remember the Red Sox in 2004. The Diamondbacks are not coming back if they fall down 3-0 to the Philadelphia Phillies. I am willing to stake my reputation on that. They are not coming back from that. Also, tonight, the Houston Astros, they take on the Texas Rangers. The Astros won in dominant fashion in the 3rd game of the ALCS. The Rangers finally had their undefeated start to the postseason come to a close. That has still been the best team in this postseason. But the Astros are nasty, man. And I know that a lot of folks, including my co-host, Jake LeBon, not fans of the Houston Astros or the way they conduct their business. But I will say, I wouldn't want to play them in October. What team in baseball right now has more proven success in October than the Houston Astros? Not the team I would want to play. Right now, the Rangers still in the driver's seat. That game has first pitch set tonight for 7:03, game number 4 in the ALCS. Final headline I wanted to get to. We touched on this briefly earlier today, but Jim Harbaugh, coach of the Michigan Wolverines, the team that I think right now is the best team in the country. Well, reportedly, the NCAA has opened an investigation into the Michigan football program for allegedly violating rules that prohibit teams from scouting future opponents in person. This is the writing of Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports. The Big Ten received notification from the NCAA this week that they are investigating the Wolverines. A Big Ten spokesperson did not give any more details into the investigation. You're not allowed to use a bunch of electronics during a game to take signals. We remember the Houston Astros, similar in baseball back in 2017. And you cannot send people to a future opponent's games to try to steal their signals. You're not allowed to do that. So hypothetically, I don't know what team it allegedly was, but it could have been Michigan State, who Michigan plays this week. Maybe Ohio State later on in the season. Michigan can't send a network of people to go and try to steal the signs from a future opponent while they're playing somebody else. This feels like the NCAA being petty because Jim Harbaugh made them look like fools earlier in the year. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe there's something more sinister at play. I don't know for sure. All I'm going to tell you, and you know my stance on the NCAA, if they're coming after you with violations, fight them with everything you've got. Never stand down against the NCAA because they don't deserve that benefit of the doubt. I don't think they've deserved it recently while going after Michigan. I don't even like Michigan football. Never have. But I think this feels like a petty kind of investigation. And if you don't think that's been the case with plenty of other investigations the NCAA has done over its existence, I would suggest you go brush up a little bit on some of the scandal history of the NCAA. I think you'll see plenty of evidence of that. That does it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Let's get to a quick break. When we come back, we'll get you a quick preview of Thursday Night Football, and we'll talk to the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. That's all coming up in this final hour of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here with you on 580 Sports Talk. We'll hear from the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, coming up here in just a moment for our weekly conversation. Wanted to get you a quick preview of Thursday Night Football tonight. It'll be Jags at Saints at the Metrodome. Not the Metrodome, at the Superdome. The Metrodome was up in Minneapolis. Remember when its roof caved in? That was awesome. Saints at home, favored by 2.5. So when you factor in the built-in home field advantage for the spread, this is pretty much a toss-up between these two teams. It does sound like Trevor Lawrence is going to start for the Jaguars today. Doug Peterson, head coach of the Jaguars, told Ed Werder of ESPN that he does expect Lawrence to play pending a setback or barring a setback during his pregame workout. So I would assume he'll be out there. As long as the Jaguars can play like a B-ish game, and as long as Lawrence isn't completely hampered by that injury, I think the Jags win. I would take them outright in this game. I've watched the Saints a couple of times this year. I watched them play against my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. They are a tough watch, guys. They've got a really good defense, Dennis Allen, great defensive coach as their head coach. Their offense is a slog. And surprise, surprise, Derek Carr did not suddenly become a brand new quarterback just because he left Vegas/Oakland for New Orleans. And I know they're a tough watch, and I have a great comparison point because my favorite team that beat them is also an extremely tough watch on offense right now. So give me the Jaguars plus 2.5. Honestly, I might, there's a profit boost at FanDuel tonight. I might just take the profit boost. I might just say, give me the Jaguars straight up in that one. I've got the Jags tonight knocking off the New Orleans Saints. We have a commercial break coming up for you, and after that, we'll be joined by the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. He's on with us next, right after this on 580 Sports Talk. on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here with you in studio as we welcome on to the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, the great Mitch Holthus, joining us for our weekly chat about all things reigning Super Bowl champions. Brought to you by our good friends at both Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, are you feeling a little bit more rested after the Thursday game last week? Did you get at least a little time to get a breather after that one?
Yeah, it was a godsend, truthfully, because it had been kind of crazy going all the way back to really training camp. I guess there's a little bit of time at Labor Day, but no, it was awesome, and spent time with family, and my wife's folks live in Wichita, so a chance to go down there, enjoy, just absorb some high school and college, and then look at the rest of the National Football League, which I found fascinating because you see highlights, but when you can kind of be a fan for the weekend, you see the whole league and absorb it. I thought there were some interesting takes from.
Yeah, that sounds that sounds like a great weekend, Mitch. Glad you got to see some family, spend some time just getting to be a fan for a little bit. Before we get to the big personnel news this week, and we've got plenty to get to there, I do want to ask you about that game last Thursday. I know it's a full week ago now, and 24-hour news cycle, everyone's forgotten about Chiefs Broncos already. But on a serious note, I said I was doing some post-game stuff with Jake and Dan last Thursday night, and I said it was an ugly game. And Jake said, "What are you talking about? It's a win, an 11-point win over a division rival. That's a beautiful game." And the more I thought about it, as much as I hate to say it, I think Jake was right. You win a game like that by multiple scores, Thursday night, short week, divisional game, even over a team you've dominated recently, that is a pretty win if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you think was the most impressive part of that win a week ago over Denver?
The fact that the defense continues to rise and that they're putting more pieces together. The frustrating part was the red zone. The Chiefs, they could have maybe put 40 points up in that game. Get to the 16, you get to the 3, you get to the 7, nothing, field goal. Okay, there's a touchdown to Tony, and that was it. But the defense, again, was able to continue to mix and match. First of all, to get 3 takeaways was important, but also to disallow 2 things. One, Denver's running game to get going, or, as I alluded to last week, the passing game to the running backs. The biggest weapon I think right now Denver has is throwing to those 3 backs, whether it's Javonte Williams or Samaje Perine or McLaughlin. And the Chiefs really handled all 3. That's a big step forward for Kansas City's defense when you look at it in relation to the last several years. They just haven't had enough firepower defensively to hang with some of those passing games to running backs. Think of Perine's screen for a touchdown in the AFC Championship game of 41 yards when he was a Cincinnati Bengal. That's one. But this Chiefs defense continues to just put more together, and I'm really excited about it. And then you throw in Charles Omenihu, and I'm really excited about it going forward here over the next 5 to 7 weeks.
Perfect segue into the return, or really the debut for Charles Omenihu. I know he was around during training camp in the preseason, but regular season Chiefs debut for Charles Omenihu coming up this week. When he was signed this offseason, I know our entire crew was fired up about this because in limited snaps during the start of his career in his first 2 stops, he put up incredible rates of pressure. Maybe not the most total pressures of anyone, but in terms of how often do you get to the quarterback, he was up there with the very best of the best in the NFL, even if maybe the sack numbers weren't there. Well, you bring that to a defensive line now, Mitch, that has Chris Jones playing at a defensive player of the year level, George Karlaftis, who I think has been playing fantastic football, and plenty of other depth along that group. We mentioned Mike Dana, I think, every week at this point, among others. What do you think Charles Omenihu right off the rip can add, or maybe what can he boost in this Chiefs defensive line group?
And I think it's probably obvious they'll have him on a pitch count. I actually saw him today and we chatted a little bit. He is so raring to go. They're going to have to hold him back. He's a little bit like Nick Bolton trying to come back. But what he brings is he can make a dynamic defensive play. Don't overlook the fact he has 8 forced fumbles. When he comes after you on a pressure, he can hack the ball out. He's got long arms, his wingspan, his quickness, and then his physical nature and his ability to move inside and outside. And this just gets into why I'm so excited about this defense. Now just back up a second. You have Chris Jones, who can play inside to outside. You have Mike Dana, who can play outside to inside. You have Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who can play outside to inside. You've got George Karlaftis who can go outside to inside, and he's right now a pass batted down, just waiting to happen. You can see, and then you throw in the linebackers, because the other profound thing that came out, I can get a chance to add on to my answer. The other profound thing about the Denver game a week ago was the fact that you saw even more mixing and matching at linebacker, because, oh, gosh, Nick Bolton's back. Gosh, is Tranquil going to come out of the game? No, he'll be out there with Nick Bolton. And then you'll throw in a Willie Gay Jr. who'll rotate either in nickel or base. You got Leo Chenal who can rotate in either nickel or base. You can go 4 linebackers. You can go 3-3-5. And then we already know that the Chiefs mix and match on the back end with their corners and safeties. Safeties will look like corners, corners will look like safeties. So now all of a sudden, whether it's Justin Herbert or any quarterback down the road here, they're not only going to be thinking scheme, what am I facing, man, zone, this a blitz? They're looking as if you're someone, you would play me in chess and make your move. And while I'm contemplating my move, you were able to change chess pieces and put them in the same spot. Meaning, well, wasn't there a rook there? You just made the move. That's a bishop. So the quarterbacks now are going to have to look at this Chiefs defense, front, middle, and back, and not only see scheme challenges, but who is this guy? He's lining up here now, because at all 3 levels, the Chiefs can do that. It's really wicked. If they can stay healthy, Amenahu just triggers all of that, because he will be powerful inside and as an edge rusher. And you can have a 4-man rush set up of Amenahu, Karlaftis, take your pick, either Dana or Felix Njudike-Uzama, and Chris Jones. And now all of a sudden, you have got a defense that could resemble the Marty Schottenheimer's 90s defenses. In fact, here's your first nugget of the night. The Chiefs are only giving up 14.7 points, offensive points allowed. Teams that have played 6 games, no bye teams, the teams that have played 6 games, apple-to-apple comparison, the Chiefs are number 1 in the NFL in offensive points allowed. Take away the pick 6 and the safety. That's the best for the Kansas City Chiefs since the 1997 season. It is the best for an Andy Reid coach team since the 2001 Philadelphia Eagles. And go back and look at that defense. Now, it's only 6 weeks in, I get it, but you can see where I'm excited. I'm most thrilled about it going into this game and beyond.
One real quick note, Mitch, and it's about something you just mentioned there, not directly Chiefs related. How dumb is it that as a group, the NFL doesn't automatically take out defensive scores for another team's points per game allowed? Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I mean, they points allowed. Ooh, they're giving up. But if you have an inept offense that's throwing 3 pick sixes, why should those 21 points? Because they also throw in the PAT. Mm-hmm. Why would those 21 points go against the defense? So on the reports that I look at, and I look at several, I basically go blowing past points allowed, because I look to offensive points allowed or offensive points scored or defensive points allowed. Offensive points allowed, meaning there's no pick sixes or safeties or scoop and scores in there. It's the dumbest thing really ever.
It is incredibly dumb. We're joined by Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, here on 580 Sports Talk for our weekly chat. We do it every Thursday afternoon at this time during the Chiefs season. Brought to you by our good friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. The other big personnel move this week, Mitch, is not a newcomer, I guess technically to this year's roster, but he's a sure familiar face. That is Mecole Hardman, a late-round pick swap in 2025. Brings Hardman back from the Jets to the Chiefs. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at this move, and we don't know if he's going to be able to play, and if he does, it'll be very sparingly coming up on Sunday against the Chargers. But I think the way I'll ask it is this, Mitch. How important is it, given the fact that this wide receiver group is still trying to coalesce and become one solid, well-oiled unit, and especially now with Justin Watson banged up, how important is it and how valuable is it for Matt Nagy and Andy Reid's offense to have a guy back in who just frankly knows what he's doing, knows the expectations, and is comfortable with what his role is going to be?
That's a factor, and that is key. But the biggest key, and I talked to Nags about this today. I'm interviewing him on pregame for our coverage on Sunday, and I'll do that later. But we had a chance to chat just a little bit, just chop it up. And what he does, Mecole Hardman, is bring the jet sweep, flip pass, attack back into this offense where it's 1 or 2 clicks faster than it is with Tony, who's got speed, but he's just hesitant. And then with Sky Moore, who's fine, but McColl's like 4.3. Now, what that does is that all happens in just faster time. Let's take Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Terrific pass rushers. The Chargers have 20 sacks in the last 4 games. It's where the Chiefs could get wrecked if the tackles aren't getting a good night's sleep. But one way, and Andy Reid has done this for 11 years to neutralize the pass rush, is to run either motion or shifts, or run the jet passes or the jet sweeps or the flip passes. And you saw it last year with Nick Bosa, ran right by it. He just ran right by the play. The Chiefs got a touchdown and ran right under his armpit. Now with Hardman, you get that coming back at a much faster pace. So what that does is not only make those plays more efficient, ostensibly, it makes your shifts and motions that much more effective. Right now, teams are kind of respecting it, but they're going, oh, okay, but you really aren't running these plays for much. If McColl pops a jet sweep for 15 yards, the life changes for the defense. So I'm most excited about that, for McColl to do that action, because it just puts the lateral attack a little bit back into this offense, which has been lacking some.
How important is that lateral attack going to be? And again, we don't know if McColl is going to end up playing, and if he does, it will be on a limited pitch count. And we heard that from the coordinators today, that would be the expectation if he's able to go. But how important do you think that kind of element, whether it's Hardman or someone else doing it, how important could that be against the Chargers on Sunday?
It could be very, very important. I would say as important against them as any 1 or 2 other teams in the league. I'd put the 49ers in there. And I'd put the Eagles in there, quite honestly. Teams that are just relentless in coming after the quarterback and smashing the line of scrimmage. I'll tell you another area where I think it'll help will be in the red zone. The Chiefs right now spend a lot of time self-scouting. Like, what's going on in the red zone? Why are we up and down? It's not been terrible. Now, they're 17th in the league, so it's middle of the pack. But they get 5 out of 5 against Chicago. Great. 0 out of 4 against the Jets. What? You come back with 2 out of 3 against the Vikings. Okay, good. Win the game. And then it was 1 out of 5 against the Broncos. So they spent a lot of time analyzing it. But now let's go back to when you can attack that initial horizontal to vertical play, which is the jet sweep or the flip pass, that becomes such a weapon in the red zone. How often have you seen the Chiefs use that to be more effective in the red zone and get touchdowns? I don't care how far you're out from 0 to 9 or 10, as it were, in the red zone. Those plays will work if you can hit the edge. It's all about timing. Mahomes is so good with ball handling, whether it's a flip pass or a handoff, that it can just happen so fast the defense doesn't have time to react, and your pass rushers have to think for just a nanosecond. So Bosa's got to stop. Oh, wow, it's Hardman now. He's faster. I don't want to just run right by him like my brother did. So what do I do here? That hesitation by the pass rusher can be just enough to make a play, and so it could be a fake. But that, for the exterior pin your ears back rusher who has to think about it for just a bit, a fraction of a second, is enough perhaps for Mahomes to find somebody quickly and be more effective in the red zone.
Finishing things up with the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch joins us at this time every single week during the Chiefs season to talk all about the reigning Super Bowl champs. This Charger team this year, I think they did a great job in the offseason by, just changing offensive coordinators, period. But I think Kellen Moore is a good offensive mind. I think they've already showed this year they've got some more interesting and more usable passing concepts than we saw with Joe Lombardi the last 2 years. That being said, if you watch Charger football, and I know you have, Mitch, over the start of the season, this first third of the year, it looks a lot like the same old Chargers look. So what will the Chiefs defensively have to do against an offense that it might not be Phillip with 1L Rivers anymore, but even with Justin Herbert, who has great numbers and has the look and everything, has still not quite put it together?
The Chargers are the equivalent, I'll give you a baseball analogy, of the hitter that's hitting 300, but in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings can't get an RBI with runners at second and third. And you just look at them. They're a little bit like the Vikings when you study that, wow, they should not be 2-3. What's going on? You've already seen the stat probably. It's one of the nuggets of the night, but it's out there. The fact that Herbert has ended the fourth quarter in a one-score game and thrown 13 interceptions since he entered the league in that circumstance. That's 5 more than any of the closest quarterbacks in the fourth quarter of a one-score game. He could have hit 400 yards in a game this year. They won that game against Minnesota, but it's like he can't hit the 3-run homer in the 8th. It's popped up and you get out of the inning, or it's a strike him out, throw him out double play, like even worse. Now, what the Chiefs have to deal with, and by the way, here's another nugget. Herbert has had 54 games as a starter. You know what his record is?
27-27.
You already got it. All right. Do you think you'd win a bet, though, walking around Hy-Vee, going, what do you think Herbert's record is? Because they'd go, probably 32-25.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Isn't that the perception?
It absolutely.
He's
at a national level, absolutely.
We've got 3 years and 5 games of data here. 27-27. Mahomes is 69-17. And yet, they're equal. They're equal. Look at it. The other thing that drives me crazy is they don't ever do an apples and apples comparison. For example, passing attempts. Herbert set an NFL record in his first. 52 games, he had at least 25 passing attempts. Okay, so I went back and looked, so Mahomes had 4 games where he had less, 3 blowouts, and the game he got hurt. It's just not even it's just, you've got to look at it and go, well, let's dig into this a little bit. It's just sometimes kind of a hollow stat. Now, he's a very good quarterback, very good. So the 2 things you got to concern about, I'm going all the way back to your answer here, is a rejuvenated Keenan Allen. You get 18 catches in a game, over 200 yards, he had 215 yards. And the fact that he's so effective now, and he's getting targeted, he's had 11 targets on the average in 5 games. And then that huge game against Minnesota. And the Chargers have only dropped 3 passes all season. They're right there. The other teams at the top, interestingly, Miami's there, and Denver has only dropped 2 passes. So they don't drop them. They're not going to give you those plays where, it's wide open and think of the screen pass. One of the 2 drops were the screen by Minnesota that could have been a touchdown a couple of weeks ago. But still, Keenan Allen's a factor. And then Austin Eckler being back. Austin Eckler last year had 311 touches. That's like a zillion, seemingly, in a single season. And the fact that when he's back, that becomes the main target for Justin Herbert. Because the targets, if you look at 20 and 22, they were number 1, the Chargers, in targeting the running back, Eckler. They had 11 targets to him in Monday Night Football with his return. So you're going to get 11 targets to Keenan Allen. You're going to get 11 targets to Austin Eckler. And then you'll throw in the other guys. But that's where the Chiefs' defense and its improvement, I think, comes into play, because the Chiefs are better suited even now than they were a year ago, better suited to play this Charger offense.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. You'll be able to hear him on the Chiefs radio network on the call of Chiefs-Chargers coming up on Sunday afternoon with a 3:25 kickoff. Mitch joins us every week, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and enjoy the game coming up on Sunday.
I think it's a bigger game than people realize. I think it's the scene in Star Wars 1 where Luke Skywalker blows up the Death Star. I think if the Chiefs win this game, it's more than having a 3.5 game lead. I think then the Chargers start to look at everything and figuring out what are we doing, because you're on the heels of also losing that 27-point lead in the playoffs. If the Chargers lose this game, it's much like, it could be a bigger deal than people think.
We'll keep that one in mind. That's always putting the games in the perfect perspective. Mitch, we appreciate it, man. Enjoy the game.
See you, man.
That is Mitch Holthus, the absolute best of the best, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's going to do it today for 580 Sports Talk. We've got overtime coming up at the top of the hour following the news. And, of course, we've got Lewis Toyota High School Thursday night football coming up tonight as Washburn-Myrtle takes on Topeka West. Before we get there, we'll take it to 580 Sports Talk overtime. That's coming up after the news. Full 580 Sports Talk tomorrow. We'll join you then. For Jake, for Dan, I'm Brendan. This has been 580 Sports Talk.